Hopefully you enjoy the sights and sounds of Spa-Francorchamps as we are under 3 hours left to go here in the 24 Hours of Spa, part of the GT Endurance Cup Europe, round number 2. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching around the world. My name's Jeremy Scott. Tristan Herbst is alongside Howie Burrows. The great Howie Burrows is in our ears, pumping in the sights and sounds of this classic course. And gotta say, Tristan, once again, first of all, great to be back with you, as you and I have been through several series together, and now we're back together with another GT series, except this time it's not a one make.
Yeah, exactly. This time we got obviously a couple of different cars out on the grid, and we've been going at it for quite a bit of time into the final eighth of this inaugural 24-hour race, and we've been here for literally most of the time, in and out of the box, rotating throughout all of our commentators. And once again, just a huge shout to all of our commentators and producers who have been jumping in and out throughout the duration of this race. It takes a lot of planning and time for all of us to be committed and obviously put the time aside to make sure that we've got all the great voices and all the great camera angles and production coming up for you to obviously watch the GT Endurance Cup Europe for the 24 Hours of Spa, which so far has been pretty good. We had our ups and downs in the beginning of the event, but things have really started to run smoothly as we have come to the leg end of it. And talking of the leg end, like I mentioned, into the final eighth now, Jeremy. And those last 3 hours is going to be the hours of desperation, those final 3 hours where drivers are going to be hunting for those last few positions.
A full course yellow intervention there in the previous 3 hours, and this is what it's brought us to. Vito Fadolino on behest of a pass-through penalty by Impact SimSport, where they went off, and Blanchemont had an unsafe rejoin, is your leader overall and in the pro class. And like you said, we were getting ready to get back onto this stint. Everything started to stretch out, but at the same time, we're at the level, as you said, of desperation. So that level of aggression is going to be turned up ever so slightly the closer we get to the checkered flag.
Yeah, exactly. And it does prove to be slightly more interesting towards the leg end of an endurance race, towards the midpoint, like we were talking about at the grave, not the grave, apologies, the dead of the midnight stints that we had to run, obviously, from around midnight to 6 a.m., which was the dead in the morning stints. And then obviously we had the wake up stints, which were from about 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Around about for the European times. And those are some of the more important ones for consistency's sake, where the drivers have to stay nice and consistent for the sake of the team. But now we're in push state. It's those final 3 hours. Most of the teams will be putting their best foot forward in terms of driver choice. And we did actually have a chat, I believe, to one of our drivers from the HSK Racing team in my stint previous before this, and they told us that they put their bronze drivers as the first drivers in their stinting so that they can leave the fastest drivers for the final portions of the race and try and make up a little bit of positions. Unfortunately, those things have split up, like you mentioned, Jeremy. There's a couple of distances that have been placed throughout the grid, and the battle for fifth, which in my stint was all separated by about a second, is unfortunately well over a minute in between first and second place for the time being. So not too much action going on that front. We'll just have to watch and wait to see if we see any kind of movement throughout the entire pack.
Of course, pit stops still... pit stops are underway, we're underway, I should say, and a lot of drivers making their way through the field. Of course, we will see the leaders here in just a little while, Pitt. Of course, something that I mentioned too is Sahara GT Motorsports up 11 spots from their qualifying spot. You see Ronan PT Red, they've been doing quite well as well, trying to stay out of trouble. But then again, they're about a minute behind Matthew Orovitz for the AM lead right now. Orovitz sitting back there, the flight level racing number 747. There's the Ronan PT Red McLaren as they work their way around Gamma Sim Racing into the pits themselves. So we'll see how that plays out. But you're still a minute behind the leader with less than 3 hours left. It's, for the most part, it means that you're still within striking distance, but at the same time, you really got to pace yourself. Both of those teams having a decent amount of decent amount of pit time between one another, but you got to make sure that you're not short filling to try and get track position at this point in the race. It's great to do it in the first 3 quarters of the race, but now, not so much.
Yeah, definitely not. And think something that we also have to eventually start to talk about as we'll break into the final 1 hour stint is obviously the whole conundrum of pit strategies that really got messed up towards the beginning side of this event with the 5-lap formations that obviously threw the pit strategies out the window in terms of fuel usage for some of the drivers, and then obviously the multiple safety cars and full course yellows that we experienced at the beginning of this event. We also had interviews with a couple of drivers who told us that after lap 1, the strategy book was already out of the window, and they basically had to go lap by lap and basically try and assess the situation at hand. So it's going to become quite interesting to see what happens in that final stint as to what pit stops are going to be looking like, as we have very irregularly timed pit stops for some of our drivers. We have a big bunch that, for my stint, were all pitting at the same time, but then a couple of outliers who were pitting at very random times compared to the rest of the grid, and that's obviously going to play quite a big factor in that final 1 hour stint as to where each team is going to be pitting in accordance to the final duration of this event, and where they cross the checkered flag line, whether they'll need to be filling up the car just before in the final dire moments, or if they'll have enough in the tank to make it to the end. So stay tuned for that. It's going to start to become interesting. Well, not that it has been interesting, but it's definitely going to start to become interesting in that final stint. But in these 3 hours, it's obviously a lot shorter than 24, but still 3 hours to play for. The teams do need to still keep their consistencies here to chase down on some possible positions that may come in the future of this event.
Matteo Benassi coming in for Velch competition, as you see one driver deciding to play in the sand a little bit right there coming out, heading into Bruchelles. So, another one going off. That's a Mercedes that went off. Not sure if that's related to what happened there, but still no harm, no foul. Everybody still continues as we're basically bunched up and the lights are flashing there on that McLaren. Oh, don't want to dive in too late and make something happen that doesn't need to happen as they work their way around the circuit once again. By the way, Mirko Jusic back in the car for the 189 Velch competitions, but this battle here kind of makes me hold my breath a little bit, because Tristan, you don't want to be dancing with somebody too hard with 2 3/4 hours left, because if you end up in the gravel trap, or even worse, as we saw about a half hour ago, upside down, it could be a race ender.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a considerable amount of time to play for. Like I mentioned, we are in the leg end of it, but just because it's the leg end doesn't mean that you obviously need to try and ruin something. There is an iRacing black flag for this car over here, so it's been automatically given by the iRacing system for Jordan Weeks here for the Drive Lounge by PBM, possibly a little bit of contact or track limits. That's just gone over the incident limit. That's now given him the black flag penalty, meaning he's going to have to come and serve a drive-through in the coming laps. So let's see where it happened. Oh, there's your contact, and that is a hard shunt in the front left. So combined with the black flag, he's also got damage on that car, which is really going to make him suffer slightly on this next lap, as the pits lane, unfortunately, the entrance was just about one corner before. So he's going to have to spend the entire lap with that front left damage. Hopefully not too much impact on the car. Bit of a weird incident, if you have to ask me. He did have the left-hand side of the track. That Ford Mustang did move under braking a bit, and a little bit unpredictable there for Jordan Weeks.
Let's also how race directors point that. And Niccolo Monti sitting 5th in the Pro-Am class right now. That Ferrari looking so slick as he closes in on the looks like that is the Ronin PT Rad of Renan's Kasich right there. That's an overall position battle for 16th, not necessarily a class position battle. As watching the replay here, let's see. So we're hearing that. Okay, so there's Velch competitions. You see Jusic coming out of the pits, and we're back underway to some live racing. You see that Zuckerman tried to hold off that the Simcast Racing Team AM number 10. Again, that's another position where it's out of class, not necessarily for overall position, I should say. And now we're at the point where we're starting to see that the rest of the field's starting to stretch out. So why not go race with somebody and try and make hay of it?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're not really battling for anything in terms of your actual grid position in your division, it's still good to have a bit of a battle here or there with some other cars. It's also good for the entertainment's sake for our virtual grandstand, regardless of if it's for position or not. A good little sneaky overtake is always nice to watch on the live. Christopher Starsmore, though, in my previous stint, was leading the AM class, unfortunately down to third after a couple of the pit strategy changes. Currently put the Simcast Racing team down to third in that division, currently 25th overall though. And like we mentioned, chasing down on the Gamma Sim Racing driver that just up ahead of Matthew Zuckerman in the purple Mercedes. He's the Merc who went off during the no-name corner, just coming into the middle of sector 2, but looks like he was able to recover it all fine and dandy, and they continue to push on strong here. So lots of changes will probably still come here with this 2.5 hours still coming into play. Lots more pit stops as well. And as you mentioned, their inaugural strategy change up that will throw a bit of a curveball towards the end of the race. Mirko Usicic is into the car though for the Welch competitions. Italians, and this is a replay.
Whoops.
Apologies, thought that was live. And he did go into the sand and almost rejoined alongside the Project 91 Porsche. Fortunately, stayed on the sand as long as he possibly could to allow for the drivers to go back. Dragged quite a lot of sand onto the circuit, but fortunately all good and manages to stay out of the wall.
Well, and that's something that we like to talk about as well, as Ribeiro Jr. also goes into the gravel trap there coming out of Compass and tries to get back on Stavilo, and really not able to right there, so gets back underway. You see all the gravel there, the Campus and Stavilo, and something that you and I mentioned, doesn't matter what series it is, you really got to be careful, especially coming out of the pits, because those tires are not going to be up to temperature for at least a lap. Take a look, and something I haven't done yet, take a look at the conditions. 30 degrees Celsius, 85 degrees Fahrenheit for your ambient temperature. Track temperature, it is pretty warm, 51 degrees Celsius, 123 degrees Fahrenheit, but the good news is clear skies as we're running here at Spa.
Yeah, that is drastically increased the track temperature from when I was previously on. We had a chat, I believe, again with the team HSK. They were talking about doing double stints in the Mercedes, but that was when the track temp was around the 34 to 35 degree mark, where they said that a double stint, so basically one set of tires for 2 stints, was manageable. But any higher temperature than 35 degrees and the tires started to fade way too fast. And 51 degrees, man, that is hot. And combine that with all the rubber, all the gravel that's been dragged onto Stavilo as they head onto Blanchimont is also going to be a slight tire degrader. And the drivers do also have to watch out just on corner exit not to flick the rear out over all the gravel that's been dragged onto circuit. So a bit of a cautionary onto the back straight that they've got to watch out for. Currently on board with that Simcast racing team for Christopher Starsmore. He's still down in third in his class and still chasing onto the backside of Matthew Zuckerman. Not looking like he's going to be attacking relatively soon, as the gap is somewhat remaining the same between all of them. Paxton Motorsport does move up slightly as the Delta Racing GT of Enzo Alquini does come into the pit lane for their mandatory pit stop needed for this stint. And that's obviously the switching that we're going to be seeing with all the drivers needing to come into serve. So the pit window, unfortunately, there isn't really a pit window that we can call here, as it's all very random at this current time, Jeremy. Everybody kind of just going when the car needs some more fuel and some new slicks.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, especially since, a lot of these drivers are on 18, 19 laps into their stint. We usually see that about 25. Oh, that was close right there. As you see the Ronin car now all of a sudden going into a touch of gray, coming through the comb and into Malmedy. But, there we go. So trading pace, we'll figure it out later. No big deal. Anyway, so we'll see some of these cars come into the pits here in the next 5 laps, especially your leaders who really have not pitted anytime soon. Of course, you see the Welch competitions, it's 4th in class right now. They've been up near the front all race long in the Pro-Am class, but sitting back there 2 laps into their stint, trying to get up to speed and seeing if they can close in on Vortex and Rising Panda Racing as they're trying to get onto the podium for the inaugural Spa 24 here in the GT Endurance Cup Europe Championship. And that's going to be easier said than done, because they're a minute 22 behind this battle for third place, which really isn't too much of a battle. A lot of these drivers kind of taking it easy because they know the next couple of hours are really going to determine how close they can give it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a difficult one there for the Welsh competitions. Mirko Usicic, especially with the slight spin that they had heading onto Stavilo, which obviously on the cold tires, like already mentioned. So currently trailing fourth. The objective for them is possibly just to get into the podium spots. In my stint, they were leading the Pro-Am classes in the Lamborghini, and obviously with a couple of the switch-arounds, they have dropped down to fourth for the time being. So we'll have to wait and see if they can maybe bring something back. But as Jeremy says, 1 minute and 21 seconds of a chase to the Rising Panda Racing team of Oscar Monthien. They're up in 10th overall. So quite a hefty chase that's got to go on there. On board now with the DSP Esports Racing team, that's Niccolo Monti in the Ferrari 296 and trailing just behind the Welsh competitions. This is indeed a fight for position in class. So that Welsh competitions car does have to watch out from behind. Hopefully the tires are now nice and warm on that Lamborghini, so no further errors will come from them in this current time being, as the DSP car has been quite aggressive for the majority of this race, really pushing into some good battles with their opponents. And as you can see, just closing that gap ever so slightly to the backside of that car. Also in the background there is the Simcast Racing team still trying to trail in the background, still behind Matthew Zuckerman, so not able to get past and just sitting in that dirty air behind, hopefully wanting to clear it in the next couple of laps.
So there you go, right there, the battle for 22nd overall. We go to the battle for 4th in Pro-Am, and that's between Welsh competitions of Mirko Usicic and the DSP Esport Racing team. That's got Niccolo Monti behind the wheel. 0.3 of a second separate these two cars, and that right now is your battle for position. Now, here's what's interesting. Usicic 3 laps into his stint for tires and all that, as you see Niccolo Monti 19 laps. So now we're at the point where, Tristan, if I'm Usicic, I'm not going to burn up my tires. I want these to last as long as I can. If Monti decides to poke a nose in there and try and show himself, just let him by, because he's going to have to pit in about 4 to 5 laps.
Exactly so. And these are the kind of decisions that need to start being in the minds of our drivers as we head into this final 8th of the race. We are well into it now, and just about 3 hours left to go. Well, actually 2.5 hours already. That is crazy how fast the last half an hour has gone by already in this last 3-hour stint that we've got going. But I do definitely agree with you. The more that you push in this stint, the more you will obviously degrade the tires and obviously burn slightly more fuel depending on how you take the car. And coming down to that final 1 hour, like we mentioned, that strategy is going to be all to play for which cars are going to need to come into the pit lane for some splash and dashes, or which cars are going to plan it correctly to try and line up the pit stop with the starting of the hour so that they can stay the entire hour out on circuit and potentially gain a couple of places from drivers who did not correctly strategize according to all the ups and downs that we've had and strategy breakers throughout this past 24 hours of racing. And so currently, for the time being, our only battle that we have surfaced out on track is the DSP versus Welch. We are doing consistent scans throughout our grid just to have a look for any possible battles, even if it's not for direct class. But at this current time being, this is the closest one with 6/10 gap currently facing. We do see the rusty spatulas of Kalle Purvainen. He's into the pit lane now, up in 8th. So that's one of the Pro-Am drivers who's going to fall off slightly. The Vortex driver of Joran Engelen will move up into 1st for the Pro-Ams, and they just move up now. And so that will obviously switch things up as well for the Pro-Am class with the DSP and Welch also in the Pro-Ams, trying to chase up on those leading 3 in 8th, 9th, and 10th overall.
Well, Rusty Spatula is 21 laps on that stint. And I'll see what Purvainen can do here, but kind of interesting because Vortex and Rising Panda were all running the same stint lengths, and now your top 2 in that Pro-Am class, they're basically going to have to they're going to have to pit at the same time, or else they're going to be overtaken by Rusty Spatulas. As you're on board with Niccolo Monti, you see how the car's handling so far this deep into the stint. 20 laps. Is still a lot of pickups happening between Campus and Stavilo that couple of cars, as we saw earlier on in this part of the broadcast, that basically went off and decided to litter the track just a little bit. But so far the cars are having no problems with it. I will say the later we get into this race, the worse that Blanchimont incidents happened. You saw the little wiggle out of Monty, able to save it, but there's been some drivers who've not been so lucky these past couple of hours through the very fast left-hander. We've seen flips, we've seen spills, we've seen almost everything through there, so no surprise that we're seeing drivers start to tiptoe their way through the penultimate corner on the circuit as you go down into La Source, and this battle for fourth in the Pro-Am class still not letting up as Usich trying to do what he can to keep Monty behind him.
Yeah, talking about that Blanchimont corner, we've seen the fair share of it tonight, and a couple of trauma patients are still going around the circuit. That Garwin Racing Ferrari 296 down in 34th was the first driver to embark on the legendary mission of taking the Ferrari through the gravel on the outside of Blanchimont, and sure as heck, the car did indeed decide to try and dig a hole and capsized itself on the outside of Blanchimont. We've seen it with one of the Aston Martins as well, I believe, for the one of the Paul Bodding Motorsports teams, as there are quite a few currently traversing around circuits. So definitely a place to watch out for, especially, Jeremy, if we're going to potentially see some two-widers going through Blanchimont. That can get very dangerous, and most of the time you even see drivers just completely avoiding and jumping off the circuit on the right-hand side to avoid any kind of contact, because it is a very high-speed left-hander that can cause some major incidents. And like we say, at this time of the race, if you were to have an incident to that scale, your race would pretty much be over, because you would be spending way too much time in the pit lane trying to get repairs done, that the race will not wait for you, and you will be run down by the rest of the cars that do not have to pit for major damage. So we'll have to wait and see, and just hopefully we don't have any drivers who try and embark on that scary mission. Currently aboard with the Paul Bodding Motorsport Pro car of Nicholas Soul. He is just behind the Chronos Sim Sports of Lloyd Remy, who's up in front of him directly in track. And then I believe the car up in front is not the Apex Predators racing car, because that's a Mercedes. So not too sure who the BMW is just up in front. I believe one of the could potentially be a back marker or another one of the BMWs. Also just trying to make it through in the last 2.5 hours.
Couple of black flags in play. One of them's from iRacing. It's the 113 of Jordan Weeks, the drive lounge by PBM Pro. The other comes from Race Control, the 101 turn team by Hugo Silva has a black flag. Noted that it is because of causing a collision. So we'll see that 101 car end up at the pits, and that's going to hurt their fifth place standing in the AM class right now, as they will have to answer that call sooner rather than later. On the screen, you see right there, Ronan PT coming into the pits as Renan Kasik trying to get out there, second place in class, and this is still the battle for fourth place in the Pro-Am that you're watching, as Monty doing what he can to kind of close in on Usich. And this is what we saw in the last couple of hours, Tristan, is the fact that, yeah, you could catch up to a driver, but for some, it's like, you know what, I'm going to sit back here. Of course, Monty, 22 laps in, I would not be surprised if he's not going to push it and try and eke it out, maybe get 26 laps on there, because the longer that you run, you could possibly, I mean, if you're able to eliminate, I mean, that's something you would do early on, but, you know, try and eliminate at least that final pit stop. But any sort of advantage you can get now at this point is going to help you out, especially with as big of a track as Spa is.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of extension you can get out on circuit is going to play the advantage. Obviously, it's all going to come down to how it looks in our final stinting times, which will probably be coming to in about 1.5 hours time, which we'll get to embark on into that last hour. But I definitely do agree with you. If Monty is able to extend that car even slightly more, spend a little bit more time on grid, still staying in the same position, or even possibly trying to attack on the backside of the Welch Competition's car, that either of those could be a benefit in terms of position gain, or just long-term staying out on track and obviously running the car a little bit longer than it's supposed to be, really can help with extending the schedule for pit timers and pit lane changes. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, these GT3 cars are doing around about 1 hour and 20 to 1 hour and 30 minutes on one stint if they push it hard enough. And so that's going to be a crucial role to play, whether or not they will be pitting later on in this race. Obviously, 2.5 hours left. If they had to pit now, they could possibly run it down to the 1 hour mark. And then the question is obviously whether or not they pit again in that 1 hour, and where they pit again to try and pull it to the end. for this race. So all the different strategy decisions coming into play here, all the things that the drivers have to think about. Some drivers have the perks of having a dedicated strategy team who will do all the thinking for them. Others have to do it on the fly while they are possibly on a straight or somewhere slightly calmer out on circuit. But for the Welsh competitions, either way, it's a difficult one to make because they've got pressure from behind that Niccolo Monti is not easing off on from the rear side.
And that's the thing, too. You don't necessarily have to make that pass for position. You just get out there and you kind of twist that knife ever so slightly so you can, not only help yourself out for a little bit later on in the race, but kind of have your competitor, use up a little bit more tires, use a little more fuel. So that way they maybe have to come in a lap sooner. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's quite interesting because right behind them is a car that's one lap down because actually that might be the Project 91 car that's one lap down. That's an out-of-class position battle right there. But if I'm Monty, you know what? I'm not going to feel too sad if I see a little wiggle out of usage because that means he's using those fresher tires up a lot more. As Monty, 23 laps into this stint, so does he pit this time? Does he pit next time? Or does he wait a couple laps? That's the big question right there. As you see Smail Lade coming into the pits from second place overall in the Sahara GT Motorsports Porsche. And this is just part of the strategy of endurance racing I love so much. You're not trying to necessarily get ahead of somebody. You're trying to get inside their head.
Yeah, 100%. And that's always the long game to play here because pushing that Welsh competition's car a little bit too hard, like you mentioned, could potentially cause it to burn out those rubbers faster than they would want, leaving a bit of an advantage gap there to the 296 behind. We do also have second place for the Pro-Ams coming to the pit lane. That's the Rising Panda Racing team of Oscar, who just switched out now for Christian Kampfreger, who's going to be taking the car out from this 2.5-hour stint. Time remaining out on circuit, and Rusty Spatulas do get back up into second with that team dropping off the board. The question is where they do come out the pit lane. Currently, they are still in the pit lane, and we do have the Welsh competitions and the DSP Esports Racing team slowly but surely catching up to this pit lane as we do see them now coming up towards the bus stop chicane, still looking at that Rising Panda Racing car. They're still in the pit lane. They have not dropped off the jacks just as of yet, so this is a hard catch-up game right now to Welsh competitions. It's 17 seconds down towards them, and they are catching quite drastically down towards the line. And now the Welsh competitions car and the DSP coming around the source, and looks like they might actually get ahead of the Rising Panda Racing team here in the pit stops as they just go past, with the Rising Panda team still being up on the jack. So they collectively move up into third and fourth in class together. And the Gamma Racing of Seth Newfield also into the pit lane for the pro car. The number 137 decides to come in, get some tires and fuel. Same with the other Gamma Racing of Sebastian Trujillo. And so a lot of drivers deciding that now is the time to pit. And we'll have to see when the secondary pit will come in that final hour.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and that's how the strategy is going to play out as you see Luis Marino in for the Ronin PT Pro team as they are followed 7th in class. You're in England, as you said, into the pits as well, so that will bring Rusty Spatulas up to the point here shortly. So that battle for 4th quickly turns into a battle for 1st. It's about 30. We'll quickly turn into a battle for 1st sooner rather than later. But the DSP Esport Racing team sticking out there just a little bit longer, and we'll see how that plays out. There's your 6th place driver, Felipe Pools in the number 12 Delta Racing GT. Lots to play for here in just a little bit with Bruchelles on the horizon as he closes in on Tane Hodison for 5th place in that Grello painted Ansys Fisher Motorsports Porsche. Both of those drive. Well, here's the thing. As we're hearing, we are going to have a full course yellow shortly. And we are under full course yellow conditions. Oh my, another pit cycle, Tristan, where we see the code 60 come out. So we are under full course yellow, and I'm not sure why we have the yellow.
Yeah, we'll have a replay shortly, but that's so unfortunate for a couple of the Pro-Am drivers who have come in just before the full course yellow. They're going to lose a lot of time compared to the drivers who are going to decide to jump in now in the yellow, saving quite a lot of time in the pit lane. Here's a bit of a replay. This is the Team HSK of Ryan Otto, and just over the nose of one of the yellow Mustangs, and sideways he will go, coming down towards Erosion Radion. and fortunately manages to get off the circuit in a rapid succession. The number 77, not too much damage on that Mercedes, but that is not what you want to happen at this stage of the race. Just getting pinned over the nose there of that Mustang driver. I believe that might be the Summit Esports car of Michael Teichmann, who was just up ahead of him. So very unfortunate for the Team HSK Motorsports car, and that's obviously what initiated our full course yellow that the drivers are now stuck in. And we do see the teams up at the top, DCS Racing Blue and Team Racing Point, have decided to come in the full course.
Just a hard hit, not where you want to make contact. You don't want to make contact anywhere, but especially there, because the wall is just so close. You're up to speed there, and Odo able to get back up to at least get going once again. But like we said earlier, it's just the wrong place, wrong time for Odo, because now he's got to limp that Mustang all the way back onto pit road, and that's not a small feat to do that. You're on board with Odo, and you see a little wiggle of the hands through La Source, and now closes in ever so slightly. And you see in the camera, the rear camera there next to the dashboard, that you do see the car there, not necessarily in the blind spot, but still it was too little too late for Odo. And code 60 now in effect for these drivers as they slowly work their way around the circuit. You see Felipe Pouls, does he come in? I know Hodison will most likely bring that Porsche down into pit road. It's a perfect time to do so, but does Hodison decide to do the same?
Yeah, so Team Racing Point, Jam Kwalbu came in just inside of the full course yellow, completely benefited from it because they're already back out on track and they remained in P1. DCS Racing Blue of Janus Hahn did the same thing in third position for the pros and stayed in the exact same spot. So really benefiting. We do see the Ansys Fisher Motorsports and the Delta Racing GTD, like Jeremy just mentioned, both of them jumping the cars into the pit lane. Project 91, the number 91 car, and the DSP Esports Racing team of now Luca Picardi switching over, have now also climbed into the pit lane, which means the Rusty Spatula is currently set up in P1 for the Pro-Ams. Vortex in second, and then Felch Competitions in third. Rising Pandas will now move up into fourth, as this full course yellow taking a little bit longer of time, giving the teams ample opportunity to get those cars into the pit lane. And we'll have to watch and see where everybody does come out at this time being for the pit stops, and where it will place them out on track as we restart this race after the full course yellow.
Question right there, because a lot of drivers coming in for pit stops. Ones notably who have not are Daniel Struska in the Impact Sim Sport Mustang, as I'll tell you what, Eric von Spiker, who's now in the number 397, talk about luck, able to come out and get the full course yellow right when he needed to. Let's see, Franek Sikorsky, that's a driver that is pretty fast, sits 12th in the pro class right now, not in the pits. Same with Zuckerman in the number 235 Gamma Sim Racing in Pro-Am, and nearly on pace with Ryan Gill behind the wheel in the 899 is slowly still out there. 22 laps. I would not be surprised to see them come in at some point.
Yeah, they might come in still eventually, like you mentioned, with this full course yellow still being out in effect. There's the DSP Esports Racing team. Luca Picardi now behind the steering wheel, and benefited as well in the FCY pit stop stage. It's currently sitting down 13th, but that's 5th overall for the Pro-Am class. And this is going to be a huge advantage because obviously Velch Competitions has not pitted, and I don't think Vortex has either in second and third for the Pro-Ams. And so things are going to shake up a little bit here in terms of positionings. Unfortunately, the only other Pro-Am driver well outside is the ERR team with the Emma Ryu down in 6th position in class, 19th overall though. So the Pro-Ams are pretty much locked up for the top 5. They're all within a good possible attacking chance with all of them performing a couple of pit stops. The rest of the grid though, well distanced from each other, even during the full course yellow processes. And lots of teams really benefiting from the pit stops under the FCY. A couple of those teams, unfortunately, coming into the pit lane just too early, and they are going to feel the wrath of that because the drivers who they were competing against and hopefully going to try and undercut, that strategy is completely out of the window because those teams who they were going to undercut have now gotten a much better pit stop that wasted way less time in terms of total track time.
All right, so the full course yellow will be ending here in about 5 seconds. So then these drivers who are in the battle will start to race each other. And now the green flag is back underway. So back to racing here, as you do see a couple of cars still into the pits. Bad timing there for Nearly On Pace, as Yannick Warnerberg is going to be getting into that car. And Apex Predators Racing with Dennis Sims sitting in eighth place in class, not too far away from Dammy sitting back there in the 14th spot. And then you see Jacoby in the number 55 Pack SimSport GT in the Corvette, rounding around the bus stop once again. And now we're going to start to see some of that frantic action that we mentioned. If you're Impact SimSport, though, why wouldn't you take this free pit stop? This is the second free pit stop we've had in a matter of hours. Come in, take the pit stop, and get out there. Yes, you've got Jonas Hahn sitting back there a minute behind, but now you're going to have him a heck of a lot closer when you decide to come out.
Yeah, that is going to be a bit of a challenge for the SimSport team. Daniel Struxer just deciding to keep the car out. And, man, 2 free pit stops, that's gone to waste for them. Clearly, they've got some kind of superior strategy that they're wanting to keep locked in coming towards the end of this race. The only issue with keeping a strategy locked in like that is that the more and more that these events happen around circuits, such as a full course yellow, or even the possibility of a safety car, is that pit strategy is going to obviously change up a bit. A black flag, though, for the Sikorsky driver over there, Project 91 racing team. This is the 191, so the secondary team for it. Possibly a little bit of contact on the backside of one of the other Porsches, and that's going to be a 4X. And another full course yellow due to, I don't know if it's due to that contact or some other contact. Nope, it's Delta Racing's Douglas Souza, who started this race, the start of the 24-hour, and now he's parked the car on the left-hand side of the main straight. What's gone wrong with the number 12?
The 12 car having issues, one of your front runners in the pro class just a couple of hours ago, and now Impact SimSport decides this is the time I'm going to come in and take the pit stop. So Struska, he ran out of fuel. Souza out of petrol, so he'll have to take the tow into the pits. And what a shame out of the Delta Racing team, one of the teams that, wait a second, how do you run them out of fuel? 46 seconds on the pit stop, so something else happened there with the 12 car. That is quite interesting.
Yeah, a bit of a confusing one. I mean, if it was a fuel case, I'm not too sure why. No, it looks like he got rolling again, so I don't know if this is fuel. This could be a technical issue outside of in-sim issues, and the full course yellow looks like it's going to be ending. So it looks like Douglas Souza potentially having some kind of hardware issue. It is not a random event that occurs. It's definitely something we've seen before. I think the worst kind of hardware issue we've seen is the hard left lock that some of the wheel manufacturers unfortunately have faced with a couple of bugs in the past, and they've rectified those, thankfully. But it almost looks like Lucas Souza just lost full power in terms of any kind of throttle acceleration and steering there, so possibly just a mass disconnect. And now we have for P3 battle right on the restart of the full course yellow. I mean, Jeremy, this is some peak content that we're getting at for the Sahara and the DCS Racing Blue.
Yeah, Eric Von Spiker sitting there in third place now, gets around Jonas Hahn. Great jump there on the restart. He kind of caught Hahn sleeping. It's not something that you see that often as they still work their way around. By the way, Hutter Horchi will be in the number 6 Mustang when they come back out here in just a little bit of time, and it's going to be only a matter of time before Eric Von Spiker closes in on that Mustang. A little bit of dust getting kicked up there by the flight level racing Mustang, your class leader in the AM class. And, of course, not too far away from Seth Newfield in the Gamma Sim Racing 137. So, out-of-class racing there. But this caution really proved helpful for Impact SimSport. However, they're still almost a lap in arrears as Guilherme Kulabo in the number 19 Lamborghini has almost a lap on the field already.
Yeah, exactly. A great start there from Giamet up in top in the team racing point. And obviously, like I mentioned, he did get the pit stop in the full course yellow, and that's just proved to be major advantage for the team. A little bit of a replay here. This is Eric Van Spiker, and coming out of Stavelot. This was just going green onto the back straight up towards Blanchimont, and up ahead is the DCS Racing Blue team, and way slower off the mark compared to the Sahara team. And the number 397 is really captivating this and taking the opportunity by Storm up on the inside. And we just spoke about Blanchimont being a very, very controversial topic here, Jeremy, of drivers contesting through it. Unfortunately, he was just able to get through before being contested further. That would have been bad if both of them decided to go too wide through Blanchimont.
Now he's trying to give us a radio version of the Spa 24 hours. So, but either way, yeah, that was a great jump there by Van Spijker, and timed that just perfectly as Johannes Hahn falling back just a little bit, still within about 0.6 of a second off of Spijker, so about a couple car lengths, but Spijker getting the better run headed towards Blanchimont. Yeah, but man, that you gotta be good on these restarts, as you see a whole mess of cars behind Johannes Hahn right now. Those are cars that really are of no consequence, either because A, they're not in class, or B, they're more than one lap down. But either way, this has been a very interesting past couple of minutes, as we've had 2 full course yellows. When was the last time, Tristan, that we sat down and thought about, okay, we're just gonna have a couple of full course yellows within such short succession?
Yeah, I know. I think this is the first time I've seen so many full course yellows just being sprung up in such short amount of time between them, which is quite frantic, especially in a 24-hour event. This is on board, though, with the Ronin PT team, Diogo Maia, and just up in front, the very unfortunate Mustang of Bravo Snow of Rafael Oliveira. One of the Mustangs that started this 24-hour in 2nd place, and unfortunately down in 17th. Huge amount of contact that they had in my stint earlier on with another driver, causing them to go into the pit lane with over 15 minutes of repairs on the front side of that car. And so that's why we see them all the way down in 18th position. They've made a good recovery drive, though, to get themselves back on the mark. But unfortunately still not where they would have wanted to be in the grand scheme of things, and currently being placed a lot of pressure from the AM drivers of Ronin PT and Diogo Maia, really starting to try and level up the playing field out here against Bravo Snow, as they try and chase down on Gamma Sim Racing's Sebastian Trujillo, just a bit further up the field, about 15 seconds ahead of Rafael Oliveira's car. So a little bit of a distance there between the two of them. These two are indeed fighting for on-track position, but not for division, as one is in Pro and one is in AM. So they'll probably keep to themselves for the time being. Ronin might try and make an overtake here if necessary, and if he is indeed faster than the Bravo Snow car.
We've seen the speed out of the Ronin PT red McLaren throughout this race, so would not be surprised as Diogo Maia trying to see if he can get around. Of course, every position that he gains gets him ever so closer to the number 747 Flight Level Racing Mustang of Matthew Oravets, who is your points leader so far. Your class leader, as they work around down through the pit straight, but still plenty of time left to make something happen, and all it's going to take is it's going to take one strange incident to possibly make stuff happen. We haven't seen that. We have seen strange incidents, yes, but I don't think we've seen the strange incident of the race to close it down, with just about to close in at about 2 hours left to go in this race. And yep, there goes the Ronin PT McLaren around the Bravo Snow Mustang. So the race is afoot to try and get closer to that class leader.
Yeah, just trying ever so more, and 47 seconds of a gap between Ronin PT Red and the Flight Level Racing team of Matthew Oravets, who sits just 15th overall, but currently holds the lead for the AM class. So this is more likely in favor for the Ronin PT Red team. Unfortunately, Bravo Snow, 11th in class, very different to the 2nd in class of Ronin PT Red. So Ronin PT Red, definitely justifiable action there, trying to overtake the pro driver and try and breach a little bit closer towards the Flight Level Racing team. Just about 10 minutes left of this hourly stint, and then we break down into the final 2 hours of our racing action here, where things again will become even more desperate as drivers start to scrap for place out on track. Where applicable, those strategies are also going to come into play for those final amounts of hours. The drivers who did pit around about the 2.5 hour mark cannot make it to the end of the race on that pit stop, and so another one will be done. The question is, when will it be done, and how will it be done in order to keep the competitors at bay and not lose out on any kind of track position?
And that's the key here, is trying to make sure that you have enough in the tank to get through to the end. Look at the pit stints right now. There's a lot of great strategies being worked out, but a couple of them that make me scratch my head. One of those is what we have on screen, the Gambit Sim Racing 235, Matthew Zuckerman, who is ahead of this PAX Sim Sport GT team, they've got 14 laps in this stint right now. Everybody pitted basically in one of those 2 full course yellows. Them and Velch Competitions are 2 of the ones who haven't. I don't know, Tristan, if that strategy is going to work, a going off course strategy as we see off course racing for just a little bit, but I'm just shaking my head here because I don't think those drivers who decided not to pit on the yellows are making the right call. Pit with everybody else now and then figure out a way to stretch your stint length over the drivers around you.
Yeah, the issue is that this race has just had a couple too many variable factors, and I do fully agree with you in that regard, is that when a safe time comes to pit that you can obviously minimize on time lost on track. With this specific event just being very unknown for the amount of incidents that we've had so far, it's better to just rather come into the pit lane, get one of your stints sorted. Even if it obviously shakes up the strategy for the remainder of the race, you are still going to benefit somehow pitting under a full course yellow and still follow in the same trajectory as the cars around you. But for those who have stayed out, and the biggest one as of yet is going to be that Impact Sim Sport up in second for the pros, who's decided to stay out, like you mentioned, twice now in full course yellow conditions and try and stick to their original strategy, is that if things were to be shaken up again and a possible further full course yellow or even a safety car being thrown into the mix, well, then that strategy of theirs that they were trying to lock down is in any case going to get thrown out the window. So a bit of a weird one, as I do agree with you there, a couple of head scratches as to why some of the pit stop strategies that have been deployed, why they have been deployed in such a manner, and rather just try and take the flow of the circuit. It's very difficult to span out multiple pit stop strategies in a event-filled 24 hours. Rather just try and take it as it comes. Each and every stint you will adjust accordingly as to the events that are happening out on track.
So some of the closest battles we have on the circuit, these are all outside of class racing, but something to keep in mind that it will affect the overall standings here and could affect the class racing as well. So drivers strung out because of the 2 full course yellows we had in succession, and everybody able to pit when they needed to. So that helped things out. So now we get to see, the only thing we're going to really need here is a safety car to come in and kind of bunch up the field, which I know, if you're battling for the Pro-Am lead right now, you definitely don't want that if you're Paravidon, but from second on back, you're going to want that because they're all in a row. If they can bunch each other up, then the game's going to be afoot, and especially for your top 7 as well, although it's right now a 2-horse race for the battle for the lead because Team Racing Point and Impact Sim Sport, those are the only 2 cars who are on the lead laps so far. If you're Matthew Orovitz, you're kind of smiling quite nicely because you've got at least 1 car between, but it doesn't take much to get out there and make something happen for a full course yellow, because once it happens and the field gets bunched up, well, you're really going to have to change your strategy from there. Let's take a look at the cars left in this race. You've got down to 39 cars as Jordan Weeks in the Drive Lounge by PPM Pro and Quad Dash Racing with Ryan Stringer still trying to get things fixed out there. Paul Botting Motorsport, you saw that with Joseph Opakin earlier on in this race, still out of the race. So a lot of drivers who have already had issues befall them, but so far in this 507-lap affair, so we've seen a lot of interesting battles in this one. In spite of it being out of class, is not letting up.
Yeah, absolutely so. And unfortunate to see so many cars that have decided to drop off there, especially for the Quad Dash Racing team of Ryan Stringer, Tristan Engelstad, and a couple of their other team members who have been joined in here today. It's just unfortunate to see them dropping off at the leg end of this race. They really were very fierce and competitive towards, especially in the graveyard shift in the middle of the night. They really were good at keeping the pace controlled in those cars. Just at the moment, unfortunately, not looking too good. This is for position, though, as overall position for 7th in the Pro-Am class, nearly on pace with Yannick Wannenberg. And just up ahead is the car of the Apex Predators Racing, Lucas Budd, in the Mercedes. So they're currently chasing down on each other. The beautiful gradient of that pinkish yellow Aston Martin chasing down on the golden Apex Predator car of that Mercedes, and soon we should be seeing a bit of an attack on the outside. There is I believe Aiden Hill in his Lamborghini, unfortunately quite a couple of laps down. He's also had a very eventful race, and so he's eventually going to be nudged out the way in blue flag territory, and the driver's now switching and sounding, and a great overtake though from nearly on pace. Yannick Wannenberg just through the bus stop has made it work, but on the inside line the Mercedes is not done yet.
No, Lucas Budd looking pretty good there, that 444, but he's trying to go toe-to-toe, and they are going side by side, heading down the pit straight. So Bud has the advantage going into so far. They lean on each other through Eau Rouge, and now a little bit of wiggle through Radion, and thankfully both cars able to save it, as now Warnenberg goes back to the point in 7th place in that 899. As down the Camel Straight they go. The draft is going to be in full effect, but we see a move into Lacombe out of those two. No, it's going to be too late of a move if they really want to, as going around through Lacombe and now into Malmedy. That was absolutely fantastic racing, and how those two didn't end up wadding up into that tire wall is beyond me. But Wannenberg opening up a 2 to 3 car length gap in that Mercedes, in the Aston Martin, as they work their way around the Bruxelles hairpin and through Speaker's Corner. But it takes high commitment, and that's what I was talking about early on. We're going to start to see the aggression level just get turned up ever so slightly, and that is one of the moments that you're going to go back and look and say, okay, that's where we started to see drivers move it up from 8/10 to 10/10.
Yeah, absolutely, and a good little battle that they had there. It's at least the scrap was managed quite well, and almost losing each other there at Perouge, but good catch nonetheless. Back on with the Gamma Sim Racing 235 car of Matthew Zuckerman, and he's currently chasing down, he's currently being hunted down by another one of the Mercedes at the time being, but I don't think that is for any kind of direct position. Directly behind them is Project 91 of Franek Sikorsky, but that's over 22 seconds behind and over 2 laps of a distance as well. So it's additional 2 laps behind from that car, unfortunately. So Gamma Sim Racing about 1 minute and 56 seconds off of the next up in line Pro-Am driver of DSP Esports team, up in 13th overall. So they're in a very much a no man's land in terms of anybody attacking them at this stance, because behind them is going to be that 7th position in class of nearly on pace Yannick Wannenberg, being 1 minute and 50 behind Gamma Sim Racing. So quite a big amount of time strides that are being placed between our drivers for the time being, and that is unfortunately leading to the racing being quite gapped out here. And all we can really do is watch out for any kind of overtakes or incidents that might occur, and provide you all the coverage and entertainment that you may seek here at the GT Endurance Cup Europe for the 24 Hours of Spa.
You see Gamma Sim Racing looking pretty good. Zuckerman, that's been a driver who's been really making his way through the field. They're up 8 spots from their qualifying position, and I'm seeing a lot more green than what we have been most of this race. In fact, your highest climber so far is Michael Van Luck in the number 2 Vortex in the Pro-Am class, 2nd in class, 9th overall, and 14 spots up as they work their way up and through into Radion, now down into Kemmel and through the Kemmel Straight. You start to see who the fast cars are working down, and of course the Mercedes trying its best really through these portions of the course. Up the Paul Botting Motorsport of Nicolas Soleil gets a black flag, and that comes direct from race control, and that is because of a full course yellow procedure violation. The other driver to get that once again is the 101. So more problems for the 101 cars. They get another black flag. That's the second one that they've had, and I believe it's the second one. Yeah, it's this time for the full course yellow procedure. So really a rough go of it if you're in the 101 turn car.
Yeah, very rough indeed. That black flag penalty is going to play into quite an effect of this late in the race, as we are about a minute left until a 2-hour marker. And at this point, a two hour race is basically just a sprint race in the grand scheme of things. 22 hours completed around the circuit of the Spa-Francorchamps, and only 2 hours left to go here in the Ardennes Forest. And still watching on for all of our drivers. We also obviously have that Paul Botting Motorsports Pro of Nicolas Sol, who's also gotten himself a black flag penalty down in 23rd. He's also going to have to get that served in a matter of time. Currently on board though with the Gamma Sim Racing, still the 235 mark, Zuckerman, and busy chasing still onto a couple of drivers, but again, in a bit of a no man's land. He's got that Merc behind, who is currently the reason up on cams is that it's the closest battle that we have out on track, where an overtake is possibly present, but there's no direct battle going on between these two drivers in terms of on-track position. Just merely a possible overtake that may come between these 4 cars that are currently tailing each other as they head onto the main straight now, up towards La Source, main GP straight, not the main endurance straight, but still nonetheless an understandable marker here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. But yeah, continuing on, this is where time will start to fade a little bit as the drivers start to distance themselves. The DCS Racing car is also quite close up on the marks, up in 4th, currently 3.2 seconds off of the Sahara XGT Motorsports team, the number 397. And so hopefully we can get a bit of stride coming up from those top runners and a little bit of a distance closed up so that we can see some fights going on for the top spots.
And we're under 2 hours left to go here in this race, so plenty of time to go through as you see this battle out of class position, and a lot left to play for here for this this first large endurance race of the GT Endurance Cup Europe as they work their way all throughout Bruxelles. And let's see what we've got here in class. Not much in class right now, but you do see that Emma Ryu is still in the pits with some sort of damage, and it's going to take about 6 laps for Prism Motorsport Pro with Lucas Huberger behind the wheel to get solidly into the top 40. He's 39th right now, but that's something we've been watching throughout these past couple of hours, is watching that gap close with Prism just, getting out there, getting as many positions as possible to try and move up through the field. And that's another part of the endurance race that we don't talk too much about is, if you have damage, get back out there, especially if you do it early on in the race. As we have a replay here of an incident with Apex Predators Racing. Let's see what happens with Lucas Budd, and little bit of contact there. No harm, no foul. He's going to dive to the inside and punt. There goes Budd around, and that's a place where we've seen drivers just end up having problems all race long between Campos and Stavelo.
Yeah, and almost narrowly avoiding any kind of rear damage. Managed to just stop that car on the gravel. You could see it was A-bound for that red tire barrier. Very, very close to having even just a minor bit of a denting on that rear spoiler, which could cause a very minor bit of downforce loss. But good save there from Lucas Budd to keep it out of the wall. As we got a bit of a replay, but Emma Ryu, that's currently in the pit lane, I believe, a bit of a weird one. But nonetheless, the racing will continue as looks like the race timer, there we go, it's ticking, apologies, looked like it wasn't ticking there for a second, but all is good to continue going here. A minute, not a minute, I wish it was a minute, it would be towards the end of its side now, an hour and 57 minutes.
Wow, all right. This is the race that never ends. It just goes on and on again. The reason why we were showing Emma Ryu is because she has a stop and hold plus 30 for causing a collision during the full course yellow. So it's gone from bad to worse for the ERR by Dyno Wrap number 820. Oh, so Emma Ryu deciding... She's deciding that the ER by Dyno Wrap car deciding that it's over. So she basically said, nope, I'm done. I'm not going to incur any more penalties. I'm out.
Yeah, man, that's unfortunate to be seeing at this late in the race. I mean, I know the stop-go is quite an annoying thing to add to your total time, but left in 20 minutes to go. So, yeah, I mean, it wraps it up basically for them leaving 20 minutes ago in the session already. But that's just unfortunate being so far into this race, completing over 22 hours almost around about, and then just deciding to take the car out. Unless, obviously, it was a leave due to some kind of internet error, then that's fully understandable. But if it was, disconnect due to deciding to forfeit the car, man, I just don't really see the justification in that. You're so close to getting to the end. And I think this was a conversation I had earlier on in the evening with either Ron or Lorenzo, just based on the fact that completing the race itself is an achievement. Obviously, getting those good positions is going to be great for your points, but just the fact of completing a 24-hour race with your team is a massive achievement of both strategy, consistency, and just pure determination to get to the end. And I mean, just getting there is such an oversight that drivers look over. Finishing a 24-hour race is a really inaugural thing to do, especially for newer teams who are possibly completing their first one. As we now see an overtake, that's I believe the Rosso Esports Con, the 967 iRacing team, and not for direct position change, I believe, and getting ahead just at the hairpin section there. So great job, not the hairpin, the chicane section of bus stop. Great job there from the Rosso Esports team. Also a team who's had a significantly hard drop-off. They were well into the top 10 at the start of this race, down currently 28 overall that they've got to work with, 27th, apologies. So hard luck there for the Rosso Esports, but yet again, they will chase to try and finish this race and get the achievement done and dusted for the Spa 24-hour.
Well, Tristan, you and I, we've worked together so long that, we know each other's talents. We know how good of broadcasters we are, and even I'm a pro broadcaster, to say the least. But let's bring in a broadcaster who's, I would say, probably even more pro than the both of us, to say the least. And while we're bringing him in from the waiting room, we've got another pass-through for car 46 for causing a collision. So that would affect Rising Panda Racing, one of your front runners in the Pro-Am class. So not a good time to get a penalty here, as we are in the closing stages of this race. But either way, let's bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Damon. And Nick, I've got to say this. For being on the other side of, first of all, on the other side of the mic's got to feel weird, but being behind the wheel of a race that you're used to calling, this has got to be kind of different for you.
Yeah, no, it's a fun experience. It is different, as you say. I'm used to doing what you're doing, and then grilling the poor saps who come off the track. Yeah, I mean, I am not a hardcore sim racer. I enjoy it. I do it irregularly. Very regularly recently, but I was obviously asked by the Simcast team. The Simcast, if you don't know, is the sim racing program that's on Radio Le Mans and Radio Show Limited. Obviously, we're there with all the rest of the programs, so they're there every week. But they have an American version, a British version. So they asked me to join the team, and this is my first ever unofficial race. I've never done an unofficial race before.
That's interesting. It's funny. So last week I was at the NASCAR race, and I ran into my friends over at MRN, and it reminded me about the time when, because a couple of them, we did the Grand Am race at Kansas, and they actually talked about poor saps on pit road. I almost was a poor sap because I almost got thrown off the Chip Ganassi box. That was the race when Memo Rojas was hitting everything but the pace car. My producer's like, okay, you're going to go talk to Tim Keene. I don't want to mess with Tim Keene when he's mad, first of all. So second of all, I'm on the pit box. I'm asking questions, and I could feel Tim getting madder and madder. My producer's like, this is good stuff. Ask a follow-up. I'm thinking, do you want me to die in my first pro race? Come on.
Hey, if you haven't been thrown off at least 3 or 4 pit boxes and out of a couple of garages, you haven't done your job properly. They can't all like you.
Real quick, we've got a big problem now. As Impact Sim Sport, you see on the top part of your screen, they are going to receive another drive-through penalty for causing a collision. That is a second big penalty, Tristan.
Yeah, huge penalty coming in for that team, and especially with them being so high up in second and not taking those pit stops during the full course yellows. That is quite a punishment for the Mustang drivers up in second.
Yeah, but so Impact Sim Sport have gone from the penthouse to the outhouse in just a little bit of time. Oddly, back to Kansas real quick, and I'll hand it over to Tristan, Nick. That was also the race where Reese almost took off my head with the fuel hose. So I had a great introduction to pro pit reporting that race.
If you haven't been run over or hit by something or had something thrown at you, I actually got reported to Le Mans 2 or 3 years ago. I got reported by a team for being in the way of their pit stop because they'd thrown a tyre erroneously and it had hit me even though I was standing in the right place. They suddenly thought, hang on a second, we've just thrown a tyre at someone, we might get a penalty. I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll say he was standing in the wrong place, they won't get it. And so I thought, thanks a lot, yeah. So I had this massive tyre mark on my overalls. And I could prove that I was the innocent party in it. They didn't get a penalty either, but I just thought it was just not fair. But yeah, John Lazy ran over my foot once, does that count?
That does, but so Tristan, go ahead. He's all yours.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously been going on now for what is this now? 22 hours just about in this race. And it really has been escalating. We've had a couple of chats with quite a couple of our drivers on the grid as to strategy. And a big question that we've got, especially for drivers who are currently still out on track, is that the beginning of the race, and obviously all the full course yellows and the safety cars we've had, have really thrown strategy books right into the bin. And so for the team currently out there, for yourself, what on earth is the strategy looking like coming towards the end of the race in terms of those final pit stops?
Well, realistically, I mean, we benefited from some of the overnight safety cars. I mean, I'll be absolutely upfront with you. I am probably slowest, or perhaps the second slowest person in the entire race. So when I knocked off my 4 hours, 3.5 hours in one go overnight. Luckily, there was a lot of safety car, and I am as fast as anybody under safety car. I'm absolutely as quick as the quickest person. So we basically, we were very lucky to get the thing moving forward by using the yellow flags. We've unfortunately coming out of that period, so more in the last 4 or 6 hours, we've been the wrong side of the very infrequent full course caution. They've not been where we want to take the pits. So they've actually ended up dropping back a lap and a half on the leader when we were actually, when I handed it over after my stint, we were I think 3 seconds behind in second, but that was only because of I had 2 wave rounds and no ending of pit stops. But yeah, I mean, I think the problem we've got now is that making up time is really, really difficult because you are not going to do it on the track. Everyone's running within a second a lap of each other. Everyone, the people are driving very well. There's very few major mistakes being made. So it's a case really now. It has to be a situation to make something up where you have to run as long as possible and just hope you get a full course share to get you a slightly cheaper pit stop than the other teams around you. But where we are, which is third place in amateur, the fourth place team's about 25 seconds behind doing similar times. If it runs as you expect it, we should get the end in third. But obviously we need either, I shouldn't say this, we either need an error from the first two or a bit of bad luck to befall them, or possibly even them to go over one of their 30 marks on the instant points just to get that sort of minute and a half back. We actually did lose, not really due to pace, but due to their pit stops falling. This is not business. It swings and roundabouts in endurance racing, but their pit stops, happen to fall well for full course yellows and ours didn't, and that's just the way 24-hour racing goes. But I mean, what I would say is that it is great to say this is my first unofficial race, and I've done quite a few 10s and 12. I've done a few Bathursts, and I've done a couple of Daytonas over the past 5 years. But obviously, standard iRacing races don't actually have any. There's no strategy in them because you just get in, you do it. Basically, don't go fast, don't crash. There's no strategy involved in it because it just runs to the end. So running with safety cars and running with full course yellows really does add a really extra interesting element to it, which obviously kind of appeals to me because that's where my day job is.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, we were having some chats with the other commentators as well. No matter how long those full course yellows and the safety cars have been, there have really been a benefit to some of the drivers who have had a couple more incidents towards the beginning side. Then last one for me as well is just we had a couple of questions for our previous interviewees with regards to when the track was a little bit cooler. We had a lot of double stinting going on in our cars, allowing them to obviously run the tires out a little bit longer. For the team alike, were you guys able to do any kind of double stinting to maybe save on some time on circuit?
Oh yeah,
or was
yeah.
it just not applicable?
No, there was no problem at all during the night. I think we did. I think I did 2.5 because just the way it fell with the running. Well, I'd say 2.5, but quite a bit was behind safety car. But I think even after 2.5, I came off with 78% as the worst tyre, or 77% as the worst tyre. Yeah, it was really, really easy. I think in these. Well, it's now 50 degrees, so in these temperatures now, it's a real effort because the tyres feel horrible even when they're brand new, let alone when they're worn. So yeah, I think it's a case of you possibly you might want to try it, but it's not really worth it unless you think those 30 seconds are really going to give you a chance of getting past someone.
Yeah, I mean, we're at roughly 51 degrees track temp now, so definitely not a viable choice for the double stinting. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate the insight. That's insight you've given to both us and the virtual grandstand. Jeremy, over to you for any other questions for Nick.
I don't necessarily have any other questions other than we've got to get you in the booth here at least at some point, whenever your time allows, or whenever, because really I mean, look, I've been around the country doing stuff too, and it's always nice to have that extra professional eye to say, okay, well, this has happened here, but it's amazing how close calling these sim races is to doing the real life stuff. The nice part, as I jokingly say, is I don't have to put pants on to do these things here at home.
No, I mean, I did a lot of, I did quite a bit of sim racing through 20 and 21, obviously during the COVID time. So I did the iRacing version of this race. I did the iRacing Nürburgring 24. I did about most of the iRacing special events for a couple of years, and also I was involved with the IMSA online championship for the first year or first 2 years with John. So I've done quite a lot of it, and it is, it's as you say, it's just like a real motor race. You have to get too hot or too cold, and you can do it with a cup of tea. It's fine. So it's, I enjoyed commentating on it, and it was a different challenge. But one of the nice things, of course, is you could see every single car. You could see where they were. You had every single camera angle you ever wanted, which was great.
Yep. Yeah, because real quick, we've got about a battle for fifth here heating up in the pro class between Tane Hodson and the Ansys Fisher Motorsport Porsche and the Delta GTD of Douglas Souza, who you remember brought out our last full course yellow with issues as he tries to close in and get back within the top 5. No word yet on what caused the issue with Delta Racing GTD. We'll try and press further, but oh, look at that. Down Kemmel, he looks at the inside, shows himself. They're side by side going into Lacombe, and this is going to be absolutely fantastic as that BMW shows its might, and man, gotta hold your breath ever so slightly. They're still side by side as they work their way through Malmedy, and he gives up the ghost. Little bit of a contact there. That was a little close. Could have ended up in tears, and both of those guys get back pointed forward. But back to what I was saying, it's like, I've done I past couple, I do a regional series as well in real life, and I go from the sim stuff to the regional series, and I look, it's like, man, we have the technology to where we can do certain things with the sim series that we do with sim series, I should say, in real life, as Gamma Sim Racing into the pits, and get to see this contact a little bit here between the two cars, but there's so much to where when you do the sim so much, you go to real life, it's like, oh wait, I don't have that, and vice versa with the real life stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose really, the place where it really shows the difference is at Nürburgring. I've done the Nürburgring 24. I've done it both. I've done it on sim. I've done it remotely. I've done it actually at the Nürburgring. And the great thing is, it's so much easier to do it on the sim because you're not losing the cars for 14 or for 8 minutes. They're there, and you can see what's going on for all the various shots. I mean, it has improved recently with the heli shots, but it is a really, really useful thing. You can scroll. Whilst you're talking, you can scroll through the various cameras. You can look at the various cars. You can even search for what may be happening or may not. If you've noticed something on the timing screen that seems a bit anomalous. So I think covering sim racing in some ways is actually, it is a lot easier in every way because you haven't got to get on a plane, which is always a pain in the backside. Then on the flip side, you don't get the catering. So, it's come say, come sa, really.
If that's not the truth, I don't know what is. Although I will leave you with this. So I am the lead announcer for a street kart race in northern Indiana. Mm-hmm. And, I know nothing about this area, know a lot about the drivers. So last year I brought my wife with me, and she went to go find stuff. And I'm like, hey, I don't have anything to eat, whatever. It's nice to have that special partner with you. As still Hodson with a little bit of a blink there coming out of Radion. And now they're side by side. This time Souza has the outside line. They lean on each other just a little bit going into Lacombe. And look at that nice little dive by Hodson as they're still side by side. Hodson's going to have the advantage through, and he's not going to be able to get it as he goes a couple of wheels off coming out of Lacombe. But anyway, back to what I was saying, my wife's like, okay, well, I'll find something. She goes to the food truck. So she's like, I don't know what to get. All of a sudden, she sees a whole bunch of the local police department standing in front of this truck that's selling fried fish. Fried fish. Okay. And the officers are all like, oh, we look forward to this every year. So she goes, okay, that's what he's getting. And last year I went there, I'm like, I don't want the fried fish. Who wants fried fish out of a truck? But it works. But yeah, that's one of the things you miss here at the race. Nick, thanks for joining us. Going to let you have a break because we're going to have a break here.
Before we go, I just need to make... Who were the commentators sort of right in the middle of the night, out of interest?
That would be me.
Well, because apparently someone heard them say that our team had recovered well after I'd put the car in the wall. I'd like to point out I was helped into the wall. That's all. I'm not saying I'm quick, but I am quite safe. And I was helped into the wall by somebody else. So that's just shooting. Yeah, just saying that's what happened.
Kristen?
Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember a single thing I called from this morning. I think.
Oh, that's fine. No, it's fine. No, that's how it should be. I did Le Mans 3 weeks ago, and I can't remember who won. It's fine.
Those graveyard shifts get a little bit difficult, but I'll pass it on to Lorenzo. He was joined with me. It might have been Lorenzo.
It doesn't matter.
Hey, at least you were talking about heroin in the middle of the night, so there's always that.
Oh, there we go.
Well, hey, it's just what Martin gets up to. It's just an insight into his life.
All right, and on that bombshell, it's time to end. Nick, thanks for joining us, and we'll chat down the road.
Yeah, Bruce. Cheers, man. Have fun.
That was Nick Damon, and that by far has got to be one of the better interviews that I've been lucky enough to do here in this Simosphere. I've had some great interviews, in real life, but that's one where I've gone away and actually have had a great chuckle about it.
Yeah, definitely. So quite a nice little interview we had there. A lot of insight he's also brought to the table for the remainder of this race. And man, what a time cut as well that he brought to that. We weren't even looking at the time. We're at an hour and a half already into this race, and we've already got to start looking out for these pit stop strategies that are gonna come jumping in here for all of our drivers as they currently sit out on the field. Thankfully, we've had Howie on the camera angles, and he's been watching out for us while we had a bit of a chat there with Nick. So he's been watching and observing for any kind of overtakes that's been happening. But at this stage of the race, we are currently just in a bit of a dry spot where most of our teams are pretty dormant and gapped out between each other. Hopefully, with those final pit stop strategies coming into the swing of things, we can maybe see a couple of contention spots, regardless of position. It'd be nice to just see a couple of overtakes here or there before we end this race in approximately an hour, 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's crazy that we started this over 22 hours ago.
A little bit of housekeeping. Want to say hello to Corbin Letaway. Always great to see him up and down the field. And also Damomo 8466 saying, who's driving for turn 1 right now? I'm trying to find turn 1. If I remember, Howie, if you see turn 1, let me know, because I think that is...
Turn 1 is the 101.
The 101, that's what I thought. Okay, because I see turn here. That's Leonard Stolenwerk, who is behind the wheel of that BMW. Right now, 5th in class in the AM class. Of course, not many AM drivers running right now. There's only 6 on the track, as looks like that's all you're going to have right now for the AM class, as out of 10, really those 6 out of 10 cars with almost an hour and a half left running in this race. That's still pretty respectable.
Yeah, absolutely. Still quite a large field to play for. It would be nice to have the full grid, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think I've commentated on an Enduro where I see every single starting car finish the race. You'll always have a couple of them who drop off due to unknown issues and other things that happen there. We now see the turn 1 car. That's in 32nd, obviously Leonard Stolenwerk, but obviously they have a couple of drivers incled in that team. So whoever was asking in the virtual grandstand, you're asking for who's driving right now? Yeah, so that was obviously the likes of... was already mentioned by Jeremy, so that's all good. But for the time being, it is currently Vortex who leads for the Pro-Ams. It's Team Racing Point who leads for your pros, and then the Flight Level Racing, the 747, the good old Boeing 747 reference team. They currently lead the AMs in 13th overall, with Matthew Orovets currently taking it over from Ronan PT Red, who sit in 2nd for that class. Currently, we are on board the Project 91 Racing team. This is the secondary team, the number 191 of Franek Sikorsky, as they chase down on, looks to be, I believe that is the Simcast Racing team of Christopher Starsmore just up in front of them. So trying to make an overtake now on the outside line, and obviously the overtake is going to be given there due to the class difference and also being slightly lapped down. The Project 91 car is actually 4 laps down, and so he's just trying to play the recovery game here and move up. There's the other Project 91, the actual number 91 out on circuit with Michael Frey, the driver who started this race. Looks like he's going to be ending it as well. Currently 2 laps down as well, unfortunately, chasing down. But this is the battle for 16th with Bravo Snow just up ahead.
I just remembered where I was for our first race. I was sitting watching vintage race cars, no less in Monaco. That's right. Anyway, so a lot of battles left to go here as you see the iRacing team with Adrian Diguez into the pits, 4th in the AM category. Oh, somebody's off track right there, and I think it might be That might be our Aston right there that decided to take it off road. You can do that with the SUVs. It's not advised to do that with the GT cars, as Alpha Trout trying to challenge, make some challenges here. As you see the replay, that's a replay, and a little bit of contact there, and two cars going for one spot, and they both end up spinning into one another. No harm, no fouls. They both are back out there. Take a look at the overhead view, and it looks like it was the cone of danger that did in Zachary Leopold.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Alpha Trout challenge car into the sand, they go in that replay, and we'll have to work back at it now for the time being. A question for you though, Jeremy, based on this Alpha Trout car, because my simple mind at 5 a.m. in the morning couldn't decipher this, but based on the livery that you're seeing on the Alpha Trout car, right? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you look at it?
Let's see if I can get a closer look at it, because if I think of what it is, might be going fishing. Yeah, I would say we're going fishing, because it looks like you see the scales of a trout fish, but then again, that's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, all right, so you're one of the smart ones, right? So you guessed that correctly. I thought that his car was covered in Orbeez because there's a bunch of little colorful little dots all over it. It is indeed the scales of a rainbow trout. So, yeah, I mean, very creative livery coming from Alpha Trout. Maybe I should have read the team name before trying to decipher the livery. So rainbow trout livery on the Alpha Trout car. Well done. You get a gold star for deciphering that immediately. Unfortunately, the version of me at 3 a.m. in the morning South African time was not really capable of deciphering different colors on a car. So
trout. I almost want to go find a fish fry. Oh wait, no, I'll get that next week when I go. You missed our conversation earlier today where I taught the finer things of a supper club, and yeah, guess what? I get to go try one. I get to go have a new one this next weekend. I've got a kart race up in southeastern Wisconsin, so I get to go to the land of supper clubs. I'm so excited about that. Apex Predator Racing coming into the pits as they have to answer a black flag with Lucas Budd. That was an iRacing black flag, and they're in and out. 50 seconds is the delta for that, as we see Bravo Snow closing in on Project 91 Racing. They're working their way around Stavelo. You see the Mustang of Rafael Oliveira trying to close in on Michael Frey. 2.1 seconds separates the two drivers as they work their way. There's the Porsche of Project 91 Racing. This is for 10th place in the Pro class so far, 16th overall. And I've got to say, Bravo Snow down 9 spots. We haven't mentioned them too much during this portion of the broadcast, but they are not having the best of all days, to say the least.
Well, definitely not. They were just about 2 laps ago ahead of the Project 91 Racing team car with Michael Frey in the loop, and they've actually just lost out to it, being overtaken by him. And as you can see, it's not looking too good, with already being at 2.6 seconds down. So really not finding the speed out on circuit for the remainder of this race. This is back on board with Impact Sim Sport SPR of Huno Horchi, who was also on board in the car for the start of this race. So it looks like a lot of the starting drivers have decided to loop back for the end, and I do know lots of teams who like to play that strategy. Obviously, others who like to play other strategies, like Team HSK, who put a couple of the bronze drivers. This is the black flag for Lucas Budd that was given by iRacing. We believe this is into No Name, coming around the long hairpin, and they're probably going to go off the track, and I'm going to assume into the gravel trap here. That looks wide, and there you go, right over the white solid line. That will grant you 2 incident points on the iRacing platform, and just enough for him to get a black flag penalty, which is your drive-through that he's going to have to serve. Unfortunately for him, this is another replay. It looks to be with the Impact Sim Sport SBR. Never mind, we're all live, and back to live racing we go with the Sim Sport car, who still has not taken, well, not too sure, but obviously didn't take the 2 pit stops. The advantage taken compared to the rest of the cars around him, and as you can see, it's been an effect as he's gone down to 4th from 2nd.
Well, it's been, even the graphics are getting a little tired of running for 24 hours straight, but nonetheless, it's been a very interesting portion of the race. We're starting to see the accordion effect work in, where some battles are closing in ever so slightly as we work our way into the final 90 minutes of this 24 hours of Spa here in the GT Endurance Cup Europe round number 2. As we are just about set to kind of step back for a little bit and we'll give you the sights and sounds of the Belgian countryside as the field works their way with 90 minutes left to go here at Spa. Oh, yeah, an interesting battle there at the end while we were in break, and that involves our new second-place driver. As you see there on your screen, it is none less than Hunar Horchi as he closes in Tristan on second place.
Yeah, apologies about that. Just had something in my mouth quickly. And yeah, so the Impact Sim Sport now under pressure, obviously, with DCS Racing Blue. We did obviously witness them making the overtake. And here's the replay just while we were away with these two drivers having a bit of a fierce competition at hand. And so this is a bit of pressure coming from Hunar Horchi on the inside line of the bus stop chicane. Huge dive, and both cars actually running out wide to try and avoid contact. Good move there from DCS to try and avoid the large leap there from the Mustang, and good avoidance, but unfortunately the avoidance did lead to the door being left wide open for the second part of the chicane. And up into second place goes the Impact Sim Sport SBR car of Hunar Horchi, trying to make a bit of a recovery drive here after the pit stop conundrum that obviously placed them down in fourth. And the DCS Racing Blue team now 1.8 seconds behind, still within capacity here of potentially challenging that car in second.
Well, here's the thing, too. That was Jonas Hahn who was behind the wheel, too. Who we know is a stout GT racer. By the way, Ronan PT Red into the pits. They are in and out. So Diogo Maya is in. Ross Norseworthy hops into the Simcast Racing Team AM. Number 10 there into the pits. Excuse me. And then but still, man, I got to say this. I wonder if Han, knowing that he's got to be in the pits here shortly, decided discretion, better part of valor. As you take a look, you got Han, Souza, Hodison, they've all got to come in and answer the call. And they're, Souza on back, they are within several seconds of each other as we are starting to see cars dive into pit road. And Simmet is in. You've got Alpha Trout in. Vortex also in from the lead of Pro-Am.
Yeah, and this is going to be the inaugural part of the race, because this is where we begin our final pit stop journey. We did see one of the Aston Martins of Vortex just jumping in the background. And that should be their final pit stop for the day. These GT3 cars can do about an hour and 20 minutes on one stint. Obviously, a little bit of saving might be required there from the Vortex car if need be. But with an hour and 20 minutes left to go, that is well within the stint timer window that they've got currently running. We'll probably see a couple more cars jumping into the pit lane as well, but it looks like most of our top runners will be trying to hold it for a little bit longer. Here comes around the outside a position or an attack from Gamma Sim Racing of Seth Neufeld, and he's holding on the inside line from the DSP Racing team behind. No, apologies. Is that the DSP? Yes, it is. Apologies, it is. The timer was just obviously showing big as the DSP is a part of a different class, but still tracing each other out on track. Into the pit lane goes the Gamma Sim Racing car, the number 137 though. And so we're seeing a couple more cars every now and then coming into the pit lane as time goes by. Now on board with Nelly on pace, Yannick Wannenberg. And he's also putting the pressure on that Porsche to get past. I believe that's a back marker Porsche though. As we just head into Pouon, and through that section they will go, with a couple of our drivers now jumping, obviously with Vortex in the pit lane, and a couple of others also jumping into the pit lane for the time being. So this is the pinnacle moment. An hour and 20 minutes left, just about 80 minutes left of this huge 24-hour race that has embarked and just about to get done here. 80 minutes left to go before we see the checkered line.
Yes, DSP gets into the lead of Pro-Am. Rusty Spatula is not too far away, but here's the thing. DSP's got to come in to answer the call to the pit here in just about a lap's time, because they are running 25 laps on their most recent stint. Rusty Spatula's only 9, so it'll be quite interesting to see if anybody can make it last. And the one thing I'm going to be watching for as well is it does Impact Sim Sport try and stretch out or try and close in any gap that they have right now, because they are a lap in arrears back to Team Racing Point as you're on board right now with Gamma Sim Racing, 7th in the Pro-Am class. Working down onto the pit straight, more and more drivers coming down onto pit road for what is equated to their final pit stop. I have a feeling that they'll all be able to make it here without any sort of splash and dash. It'll save them too as either full course yellow or a safety car position. And there's just so much to play for as Rising Panda Racing. They'll be coming out of the pits here in just a couple of seconds' time. Still taking a full service, and I have a feeling, Tristan, that a lot of drivers are going to take as much fuel as they can as John Javicki gets into the pits for the PAX SimSport GT team, number 55, 11th in the Pro Class, 16th overall.
Yeah, definitely so. The fuel tanks are probably going to be filled up to the maximum here in order to make it to the end of the 1 hour 20. And even if the cars can maybe make it towards the end without being on a fuel tank, on a full fuel tank, it might actually just be the safer bet here to place the car into a full fuel tank situation. In case, obviously, things go wrong, maybe we spend some more time under a full course yellow, or even the case of the race leader, obviously, going past the checkered line before we hit 0-0, which means that another lap will have to go around for the 7.5 kilometer circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, and so that extra fuel would be quite dire, and you do not want to be ending this race after 24 hours, 1,440 minutes. You do not want to be ending that by running out of fuel just before the checkered flag line. That would be quite possibly one of the saddest ways to end your massive journey here at the GT Endurance Cup Europe, to have a sad ending like that. So let's hope that all of our drivers will account for the correct amount of time left to go in this race. This is currently on board with the flight level racing of Matthew Oravets, currently the lead of your AMS, and he's still doing a pretty good job at keeping everyone at bay. He does have the Ronin PT red car behind of Diogo Maya. That's 32.1 seconds behind, so a huge distance that car would have to cover to try and catch up to flight level racing. So he should be good for the time being, just needs to race nice and consistent for the rest of it. The Vortex car obviously moves up a little bit as the DSP car of Luca Picardi does indeed come in to get their pit stop done and dusted. The Ansys Fisher Motorsports come in. Delta Racing GTD comes in with Lucas Souza. The Sahara GT Motorsports now, I believe, done with their pit stops. We'll move back up into fourth position as the rest of the cars have come into pit. And back into the car, Eric van Spijker will be finishing the race in the Porsche now to bring it home for the last hour and 18 minutes.
So here's what's interesting, right? As Hahn is going an extra lap of pit stops. So we'll see if when he decides to come in, Team Racing Point in and out, 50 seconds, the time of the pit, as Impact SimSport now a minute 19 behind your overall race leader. And right there's the DCS Racing Blue of Jonas Hahn. He's going to go one more lap. Oh, this is going to be interesting to see how long he can make that stretch. And I think there's DCS Racing Blue sniffing a podium.
Yeah, definitely some good opportunity for the DCS Racing Blue, Jonas Hahn. And maybe even just waiting to see if a potential incident's going to happen out on the track, which would put out a full course yellow. This would be a huge advantage to the DCS Racing Blue team if a full course yellow had to come on now. It means he would be able to jump into the pit lane with a massive reduction of time spent in that pit lane compared to the rest of the grid, which most have already come into the pit lane. And so might even just be playing a bit of the length game here to watch what happens out on the circuit. It's been an eventful event for the past 23 hours, and it can definitely be an eventful event for the last hour, which we might be able to see. So you better keep your eyes peeled for all of you who are on our virtual grandstand. This is your prime time to stay watching. This is the moment of desperation. 1 hour left to go, basically in this massive 24-hour-long race, where drivers will be making those final crucial decisions to determine their finishing positions. This is the final checkpoint for points. Obviously, we had checkpoints at every 6 hour mark. And so this will be your final, obviously, at the end of this race. And so that finishing position is going to be rendering you your maximum amount of points come the end of the 24-hour here at the GT Endurance Cup. And waiting to see, there's a lot of debris on the right-hand side of the bus stop chicane, and that's just from the clear driving paths being created from all of our cars holding on the inside line. For the time being, not too many battles out on the circuit. Most of our teams have started to distance themselves quite evenly over the board. And the only thing that we might potentially have here is the Ronin PT car in 7th, busy catching up now to Ansys Fisher Motorsports in 6th position for the Pro Class. And slowly but surely is bringing that gap down from 3.2 down to 2.7 already. And we might be able to see a bit of a change up there at the backside of the Pro train.
Ronin is one lap to the good of Ansys Fishers. They just came out of the pits. Tane Hodgson staying in there, and Hunar Horchi That's an interesting strategy there, but then again, they also had to come in and serve that drive-through penalty. Jonas Hahn also coming in 28 laps. Fantastic to see that come through for the DCS Racing Blues. So they will not have to take a long pit stop. I'm not sure how long Horchie will have to take the Impact SimSport pit stop. That Mustang coming in as well. And yeah, that's just a lot of great battles. As you mentioned, the pay windows will be opening up here within the next hour and 15 minutes for points. It'll be the final time they'll open up for the day, so the cashiers are getting ready, counting the cash and getting the points ready for the drivers as they start to line up for this final stanza of the race. As they work their way through Bruxelles, you're watching the DSP Esport Racing Team. There's DS Racing Blue. Looks like we're going to see a driver change. Jonas Hahn out, and that's going to bring Jonathan Petrie into the fold for that final stint. So teams are starting to put in their star drivers, which really with DCS Racing Blue, you can almost say that it's basically all-stars because you had Jonas Hahn who's there, get the car to the final driver, who's Petrie, who will run it to the end.
Yeah, both of them have been massive pivotal players in that team. And the two of them have been bouncing it back and forth for pretty much the entirety of the race, even throughout the graveyard shift. It was between Jonathan Petrie and Jonas Hahn, the two of them just jumping between. And I believe that the beginning side of the race is where they allowed for the two additional drivers, a part of the DCS Racing Blue team, to take control of the cars, and now it is up to them to bring it home over the line. The Sahara XGT Motorsports car does move up into second here, as Impact SimSport and DCS Racing Blue still in the pit lane. Impact is off the jacks now and will come down towards the end of the pit straight, so he'll probably come out in third, and the DCS Racing Blue car is also out of the pit lane now, so they'll be third and fourth respectively, 11.5 seconds behind the Sahara car. And boy, I don't know how well it's going to be for them to try and catch over 12 seconds in an hour and 13 minutes. If they do want that to be possible, they are going to need to lap quite a significant amount faster every single lap that is left in this race. DCS Blue 5 seconds behind Impact, and so they could possibly try and work together to try and close the gap to Sahara, but that's going to be a bit of a difficult battle to close it at this late stage of the race.
Taking a look at the third place driver for the SimCast Racing Team, Ross Norseworthy, looking pretty good. Of course, they had some bumps in the road, but still, to be third right now, 8.2 seconds ahead of the 967i Racing Team. Not looking too bad so far, as they have a little bit fresher tires than them. Of course, it's so hard for them to keep up with flight level racing. And Ronan PT, who's also having problems keeping up the flight level racing, but I would say a third for the first big enduro of the GT Endurance Cup Europe. That's something to hang your head on.
Yeah, definitely so. The third biggest, like you mentioned, with the GT Endurance Cup. And I believe the rest in the season are quite short ones that are left, a couple of 3 hours and shorter distance races. That will come after the Spa 24-hour race. This is the pivotal moment of the GT Endurance Cup, the biggest endurance that they have on the calendar, and is exactly why the points are split into 6-hour categories, just due to the fact that the rest of the races in the calendar are not going to be 24-hour spec races, and so the points that you receive from those will obviously be only for a 3-hour to a 6-hour duration race. So it had to be broken up into 4, so every 6 hours, depending on the driver's positions, is where they got awarded their points. And when we even saw some strategic moves coming from teams such as Turn 1, who tried a double stint in the first 6-hour bracket to stay ahead of the rest of the team, the rest of the drivers, and they actually managed to squeeze and stay in first in the AM category in that first 6 hour. And then just as the 6 hour ended, they went into pit on the very, very worn tires to try and bring it home across the line. And so some good strategies coming in for the structure of this, but about an hour and 10 minutes left to go here. And this is really starting to get into a squeeze moment. 70 minutes left of this race. And it is going to start to get close here between some of our drivers. I'm really hoping that the Impact car can catch the Sahara car, but it's not looking too good for the time being. It's 14 seconds away. And they are all 1 lap behind the team racing point of Jam Kalbu up in front. The number 19 Lamborghini has been completely untouched for this last quarter of the race. He has remained well up in front. and done a spectacular job to do that as well. Ronan PT, currently Carlos Coxinho in that car, currently in 7th overall and 7th in class, chasing down on Ansys Fisher Motorsport. The green neon Porsche as yet again another competitor, and hopefully we'll see a bit of a fight coming between the two of them in the next hour.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that these two who have been racing for the racing together for the end part of this race, that they really will be battling tooth and nail. But you got to stop and figure too. Hodgson's tires are one lap to the good of Coxino's as the Ansys Fisher Motorsports team pitted a lap later than the Ronan PT McLaren. But let's see what the McLaren can do here going into off the Kettle Stray, I should say. As no harm, no foul. About 1 to 2 car lengths separates those two cars as they work their way out of there. Now working their way through into Bruxelles, and that's where we've seen a lot of interesting moves through the years. Doesn't matter if it's real or sim racing, drivers try and make that downhill hairpin a great passing zone, and for some it works, others it doesn't. This time both deciding, you know what, we've got just over an hour left, why bent up the equipment now, as they come out of No Name and now set themselves up for the long run down into the bus stop chicane. Lots of fast flowing corners here that could catch a driver out, but still plenty of time to close in on that 6th spot.
Yeah, definitely still a lot of time here for the Ronan PT McLaren on the golden car on the backside of the green car. And I don't think that I don't think that the Porsche is going to make this an easy battle. As we've seen prior, that the battles with the Ansys Fisher Motorsport car have lasted for quite some time, as that car really likes to position itself in a manner that makes it very difficult for the opponent behind to really try and get up ahead. So let's hope that we have the same result for the Ansys Fisher Motorsports to keep these two at bay and fight it out for quite a bit of time. That'll be great coverage for our virtual grandstand and maximum entertainment for them as it stands. Obviously, this is indeed a battle for both class and actual overall, as these are both our pro drivers in the Ronan and the Ansys Fisher Motorsport car. So we'll have to wait and see how this is going to turn out between the two of them. Currently, this is your closest battle out on the circuit, with the rest of the drivers dissipating quite extraordinarily. Unfortunately, for Impact SimSport, they went from 12 seconds now to 14 seconds behind the Saharas. So it just looks like Eric van Spijker much more in tune for this final 1 hour compared to what Huno Horchi is doing in the big Mustang. And so they've got a good stride to continue pushing on. Yeah, they definitely won't be able to catch up to the number 19 Lamborghini up in front for Team Racing Point. But for second position in this in overall and in class, that is some great points that will be on the board there for that team. Here comes Ronan on the outside line now of the Ansys Fisher Motorsport car, with Tane Hodderson on the inside and Carlos Coxinho now on the outside. Finally gets up ahead just before turning into Lacombe, and great start to Sector 2 here for the Ronan. Moves up into 6th position.
Coxino goes up to 6th place and still 25 seconds to get to Souza, but Hodderson really closing in on that McLaren. It's McLaren over Porsche. You saw the pass right there as they're working their way all the way around, heading into No Name once again, but there's some slower traffic up ahead that could pose some sort of issue, as this is your battle for 6th place still in the pro class. Now you see Coxino able to open up a bigger gap, about 1 to 2 car lengths extra. However, he's still got to slice and dice his way through traffic. The problem is, will this happen over there on the back portion in Sector 3 from campus on over? I have a feeling that it might, because now you see the field working their way through Lagans and into the campus and Stavilo area. They'll open up the throttle just even more so slightly and tiptoe their way through Blanchimont, as Paul Friere not causing any sort of issue. The Stavilo to the chicane area is going to be probably very treacherous, especially near the end of the race here. Down, off, heading into the bus stop, and that McLaren just so good on the straightaways, opening up to a 3 to 4 car length gap heading through the bus stop chicane. But now you see the Hodderson able to close in, but not close enough to make anything happen as they go down the pit straight once again. It's still a tight battle for 6th place, and that's our tightest battle of the race so far. And looking up and down the standings to see if we're going to have any sort of pit stops here shortly, and it's going to be in the way of Rusty Spatulas and Velch competitions. And Tristan, the problem with that is first and third right there in the Pro-Am class.
Yeah, first and third indeed with Rusty Spatulas. And then Velch competitions down in 11th, and then in the middle of them is the Vortex car, currently trailing second with Lucas Romano in the Pro-Am category. A little bit further down, currently on board with the Rosso Esports car, putting pressure on, I believe, that is the 967 iRacing team of Adrian Dieguez, currently holding that Porsche, but feeling the pressure from behind of Arthur Tuga, who's already committed quite a couple of laps here to this race, and with 1 hour left to go, it looks to be the final driver who will be touching the grace of the red Mercedes, who has been such a good figure so far in this race, but now has to obviously bring it to the end of it and finalize this last hour for the Mercedes team, bringing it home strong for the number 38. The Apex Predators racing team also for the Mercedes, a little bit further behind, unfortunately, from them. And what a great dive on the inside there from Rosso Esports. And not really a direct battle, though. That's AM versus Pro divisions right there. And so Rosso Esports moved past with a swift ability. And they are currently 8.7 seconds off of the Paul Botto Motorsports Pro team of Nicholas Sol. So they'll be catching up shortly to that. Hopefully we get a bit of a battle going on between those two. Yaz Bravo Snow, the car who did start in second, currently 9 positions down after 24 hours, putting pressure on the backside of the Ronin PT red car and the Gamma Sim Racing, I believe, of Sebastian Trujillo. I believe there might be in a Merc. And so that is one of the Paul Bodding cars potentially in a back marker ship, just going under the Pirelli banner now. But Bravo Snow with Thiago Mello definitely wanting to try and get past the McLaren shortly and try and move up a little bit further. 6.5 seconds away from the Gamma Sim Racing of Sebastian Trujillo, and so could potentially attack that for an additional position in the Pro class.
Talk about a team that's fallen under the anvil lately. It's Paul Bodding. I mean, right now their highest placing car, a grand up 7 spots with Nicholas Sole up to 15th in the Pro class. But, they had a contender with Joseph Opakin in the double at 7, now 16th in the Pro-Am class. So, man, if you're Paul Bodding, you're going to have to lick your wounds there and get ready for the next round in just a couple of weeks' time. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this show, but still a lot of out-of-class battling taking place as they work their way out of Double Gaussian towards Le Fan. You see them go doing the right-left. That's the iRacing team, the number 967 of Adrian Dieguez. Oh, a little bit of an off there. No harm, no foul, except for the incident points. And now, Tristan, we're going to get to the point in the race where the incident points are going to matter. If you were able to bank some of those here with about 4, 5, 6 hours left to go, you're in good shape. But if you had somebody who was in that car and necessarily was pretty careless out there, you really got to walk a fine line.
Yeah, definitely so. And I used to have a friend who did endurance racing a lot, and he used to call the incident points speed tokens. And basically, he would use them and try and stack them up before the end of the race, and then utilize said speed tokens at the end when it mattered. And so, obviously, utilizing the exits of the corners and taking those incident points. And so, technically, that is a strategy that can be played here. If a driver has banked up all of those incident points by not crossing over the white line at all, they are technically able to try and extend on the exit of specific corners here a bit and try gain some speed. Obviously, it will come with a couple of incident points being slapped onto the wrist. But if they've managed it correctly before this 1 hour is over, they should be okay before the end. But likewise, like you mentioned, it could be the opposite effect of some of the drivers in the team not being the most careful out on track and gaining a couple of incident points, which might leave the current driver in car a little bit fragile with regards to what they're allowed to do. Potentially having to drive very cautiously, especially if they're right on the border of receiving a drive-through penalty, because that will completely ruin your race if you are trying to fight for something in this last hour. That's why Jeremy says it is very crucial that you, the drivers, watch out for those incident points, ensure that they've got enough of a bumper so that they do not throw themselves into a bit of a dilemma coming towards the end of this race. So currently aboard still with that 967 iRacing team that just lost out to Rosso Esports in the final closing moments that we just saw now, and they will continue to progress behind. I don't think we have many other battles currently out on track, which is obviously why we're spectating a little bit further in the background here with the iRacing team. Currently dropping off quite hard though from the Rosso Esports, like we've seen. Currently about a second between the two of these cars. I'd say a little bit less, about 6/10. And so they'll see if the iRacing 967 team will see if they can try hold on to the backside of the Rosso Esports car and potentially pull a little bit further up. But it's going to be a bit of a difficult task here. That Rosso Esports car looking to make up some ground in these final stages of the race. With the race of the cars, still just trying to make it through to the end. 535 total laps completed by the Team Racing Point up in front. We are almost at the leg end of the total number of laps completed.
So with 1 hour left to go, it is a 1 lap advantage that Team Racing Point has over the rest of the field, and it's been kind of their show for most of the race as the pole sitters looking pretty good so far. They had their final pit stop just a while ago, about 8 laps ago, but they could run this out to the finish, as we believe the battle for the lead in the Pro-Am. So that's a little bit different story, as Rusty Spatulas is most likely going to have to take a pit stop sometime within this hour. That's going to give Lucas Romano and Vortex a chance to close in on that 19-second lead that Rusty Spatulas has so far throughout the field. So that's going to be a battle. Also, Velge competitions we've seen on the basically battling for the podium whole race long, they are going to have to pit as well. So that could give life to DSP Esport Racing or Rising Panda Racing. Both of those teams have been following ire of the race director, whether it be through iRacing penalties or actual real-life penalties throughout the field. You take a look further back in the AM category, 15th, that's Flight Level Racing, your leader in the AM class with Matthew Orovitz behind the wheel. It's a question whether or not they're going to have to pit, because they pitted 12 laps ago, but they do have a 28-second lead, I should say, over Ronan PT Red with Diogo Maya in the 64. You got to go all the way back to Simcast Racing Team in third with Ross Norseworthy sitting there in that class. There's your fourth place driver with iRacing Team sitting there in the AM class. So 5 AM cars, but still a lot left to play for, as really that 967 Porsche is within closing distance. There's your overall race leader, and what a day it's been so far for the Team Racing Point, as they are, like we said, Tristan, 1 lap ahead of the field with less than an hour left to go. That, to me, is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, they could literally take a completely voluntary pit stop, throw on some new slicks and just try chase for some faster lap times if they really wanted to. They've got so much space behind, over 2 minutes because of that lap time bordering. It's 1 lap behind the Sahara X GT Motorsports team. And then obviously the rest of the drivers cascading behind the 397. But currently the number 19 really has outdone themselves in the Huracan GT3 today. They've been up and down the field, but obviously started in P1 in this race and hope to finish where they started, nicely and strong in P number 1. And you can see the practice has been put in here by this team with all the drivers that have been in and out this car. They have been working extremely hard together to keep this car in this position. And not only have they kept it in this position, they have absolutely stormed away from any kind of threat behind. And I mean, even if they have some kind of spin or some kind of issue that happens to them now, they are pretty much all good for the time being, and they have a lot of time to recover here. Although I don't think Team Racing Point's even going to remotely get close to making incidents. I think they are so consistent at the time being and just basically mimicking lap by lap what they plan on doing for these last couple of laps. Still on board though, a little bit further down. That's with our 84 and the 967 of the iRacing team with Adrian Dieguez currently in that car and still just wrapping it around. This is the only train that we really have lying around circuit in these last 56 minutes. Not much else going around the track. The Rising Panda car up in 14th is about 6 seconds off of DSP Esports Racing Team, so we'll keep our eyes on that as well. Maybe a bit of a closing gap there could bring those two closer together, and that would be the battle for fourth position, apologies, for the Pro-Am category. So let's hope to see a little bit of switch-ups happening there, but with regards to the rest of them, it's all pretty much in an equidistant layout from all of our drivers. Lots and lots of time has been placed between most of our cars here. 19 seconds of a gap between Rusty Spatulas and the Vortex team, so huge gap there that the Spatulas have been set there by Henry Mittinen. And oh, there goes the Rosso Esports car off into the grass And that's a black flag penalty as well for incident limits given by iRacing, I believe. So not only did they go off, they've also been given the black flag.
Yeah, let's take a look and see if it was self-induced, or it looks like it may have been, as he's all by himself through double gosh, going through 1 and 2. Oh, let's take a closer look, because it may not be. Let's see, yep, because the back end swap it ends, and that's all she wrote. So black flag for them. They've not had the best final quarter of this race. I'm sure this is something that they would like to forget. Arthur Targa, though, coming in a little bit too hot into LaFons, and yep, there we go. That's game over. Tried to save it, but nonetheless off course and back onto the circuit. God, I forgot what I was going to say. There's a point I was going to try and make here, but I completely lost it because of the black flag that has not been answered so far. Either way, this has been quite interesting now to see how these cars are going to fare in the next couple of laps, as you see what will be most likely your Pro-Am leader, Lucas Romano, going through the course as we're bouncing around left and right. There's the iRacing team, 4.5 seconds. And here's what's noteworthy about that, is that they can now see the Simcast Racing Team AM car of Ross Northworthy once they get onto the straightaways. Just at least 1, maybe 2 lap down cars in between them.
Yeah, definitely so. And we could potentially be seeing a little bit of movement here throughout this grid. Unfortunately, the 54-minute marker has not been what we would have hoped for in terms of lots of overtaking opportunities here, as most of our cars have gapped themselves quite equally. The iRacing team there, obviously a bit of a train behind. That's the Project 91 car behind them, I believe the 191, who currently sits a little bit further down on this grid. The 191 is just struggling to find them. They're actually up ahead in 21st. And then the 91 is up even further in 10th. So they're currently sitting in that wake. And then obviously the other Porsche driver, the green Porsche just behind, also just following in this 3 Porsche lineup as they head through Stavelot and then back up onto the main straight, the back straight, heading up towards Blanchimont and the bus stop chicane. And this is where the drivers just need to, modern terms, lock in. They really need to just put their heads down and get these last 53 minutes done and dusted. It has been a massive amount of time that the drivers have spent out on circuit. I mean, the teams have been co-hosting and basically co-working on this car throughout the entirety of this event, and ensuring that the car gets to the finish line is the number one objective for all of our teams here. And so this is the final objective for these drivers in the cars at the moment, is just to bring the car home in one piece, hopefully. I mean, it can come home without a bumper or so, but let's try for all of them to keep it in one neat piece. And yet again, we will hope for maybe a couple of overtakes and positions that might come to fruition in the last 50 minutes here. But for the time being, it's a bit of a stalemate century around the 24 hours of Spa, coming towards the end of it, as most of the drivers have started to set stone where they currently position themselves out on track.
Still plenty left to play for, as we mentioned. There's a couple of drivers who are going to have to come in for a pit stop. Also forget the Project 91 racing team will probably relinquish the 8th spot in the pro class, as the field working their way around out of Malmedy, headed into Bruxelles. And still, this is going to be interesting to see if the iRacing team can close into Ross Northworthy. They run about a half second faster than the number 10 car. So it's not a matter of if, but when. I have a feeling, because iRacing, they may though have to pit as well, because they're 18 laps into their stint. I remember the point I was going to make. We're talking about Team Racing Point last time by and how quick and fast they've been. Can you believe that they are the only team in the 2:15 range, Tristan, in their fastest lap of the race? So yeah, they can come in, slap on new tires, and get out there and try and better that time.
Yeah, 2:59 is incredible, and I don't think anybody on the grid is within the capacity to beat that. I mean, Sahara behind is a 2:16.9. Impact is possibly the closest currently in that top 10 with a 2:16.2. So about 4.5, basically 5 tenths behind in terms of fastest lap timing from that team racing point. So Giam Qualbu just really putting the absolute pace on that number 19 Lamborghini and finding raw speed as they continue to go. Obviously, the last lap was not a 2:15.8, but the best came from when the tires were nice and fresh, and obviously the car went for its servicing and all that kind of stuff. And now at this stage, the car is obviously just in those final moments, trying to chase down on the checkered flag line. But like Jeremy said, and like I said before as well, they genuinely could come in right now and get on some fresh set of rubbers and just try and chase the car down to the end and potentially try and crack down even further on a 2:15.8, even though that time is already ridiculously insane for a 24-hour event, and nobody else in their wake is able to get anybody anywhere near that, even when they were on their fresh tires and fresh stinting. So real props to the team Racing Point up in front, and they've done an incredible job after 540 laps to make sure that they stay up ahead and remain the dominant figure. Bravo Snow comes in through now in 17th, and I just want to look at the front side of that car because I thought I saw damage. No, I did not. Apologies about that. They did have damage well early on in this race, like I already mentioned, which led them to currently sit far down where they are right now. Note that front end is all pristine and dandy, so they are all good to go. But obviously they did have front end damage well earlier on in this race, which is what sets them down currently in 17th position overall. Thiago Melo just doing everything he can to try and fight back. There is a position here, though, with Gamma Sim Racing of Sebastian Trujillo up ahead in the orange Mercedes. And so this could be a battle here to potentially get one more spot up for the Bravo Snow driver of Thiago Snow, just on the front side of the Gamma Sim Racing car.
And it's no slouch for a position either to get up into the top 10. So this will be an interesting battle near the end of the race. We know that the pace that the Mustangs have compared to the Mercedes, so it's going to be a long grid. You've got under 50 minutes to think about how you're going to do this. And of course, the problem is Bravo Snow has 3-lap older tires, so they're going to look to the inside with Mello, and Mello is going to get that 10th spot for the time being going into Lacombe. And right now you see Trulio kind of giving up the ghost and got to sit back and try and go for something else here as the 14th place in class. So Raul Hernando comes in and out in 59 seconds. So a couple of other cars, and we mentioned that there are some drivers who are going to have to come in and pit. Well, one of those was Velch Competitions, Luigi Caputi coming in for his final pit stop of the race. You also have Team HSK with Ryan Odo, who had that incident there on the pit straight not too long after we started. So they're coming in from 10th place, going to possibly relinquish 10th place to Jack Headcox as they run the final portion of this race. And now you see Gamma Sim Racing falling back just a little bit, over half a second into the 11th spot. Behind them is a lap car, so no harm, no foul, but at the same time, you're going to have to really set yourself in, especially knowing that you've got 3-lap better tires than the driver ahead of you to get out there. Luigi Caputi looks like he will stay into the car in that 189 Velch Competitions, but he is falling down through the order. He's a 3rd and now 4th, so he sits 5th in Pro-Am. And it's only a matter of time before Matthew Orvitz goes around, and that's going to make things just a little bit more difficult for him to step back onto the podium because Luca Picardi is on the podium. But however, you have the 46 of Christian Kamprieger really closing in. 4.2 seconds separates 3rd from 4th.
Yeah, that's going to really start to play into effect there of the standings as we come down into the last 45 minutes of racing, around about 47 minutes to go, almost at the 45-minute mark, which is well into a sprint race. If you have to ask me, I feel like 60 minutes is already a sprint race, so the 1-hour mark, but 45 minutes is even more of a sprint race. There's a couple of leagues that I know run 45-minute formats. 30 minutes, I feel like is not even classified as sprint race. That's basically just a quick couple of laps around the circuit. So 45 minutes left for these drivers now, and that will really put them in the mindset that it is go time to get this done and dusted. Believe it or not, that time in the top left really does play a bit of a mental game for all of our drivers. Yeah, you do see that time, and it does change the way that you drive the car. It changes your mindset as well to this race. So once it's 45, it's almost like a bit of a change in mindset, a bit of a drop of dopamine that the drivers will get, knowing that there's only 45 minutes left to go. They've been at it for 23 hours and 15 minutes. and just 45 minutes will be done. Will have to be done in order to close it off for the full 24 hours, starting this time yesterday, Saturday, and now finishing off at Sunday in 46 minutes or so. So full time around in the 24-hour clock format, and it's been a great time around here at Spa-Francorchamps. Another one of the iconic circuits for the 24-hour racings. Obviously, we've mentioned a couple of them like Nordschleife and De La South, and a few others, obviously, that race the 24-hour formats. But Spa, a very incredible track with the 7.5-kilometer distance, with the technicalities of it being lots of straights and lots of technical corners that balances it out for the GT3 cars that get to race here. And officially entering that 45-minute marker, the digit has officially hit 45, and so the drivers will begin to notice that as we see Project 91 Racing and the Rusty Spatulas coming into the pit lane with 45 minutes left to go. They've had to come in and get some new fuel in the car. I believe they wouldn't have made it to the end of the race, and so they're going to drop down quite a bit, which is going to change how the standings will work. I believe the Welch Competitions car will try and get ahead of that Project 91, but it looks like the Rusty Spatulas are already out of the pit lane, so very quick splash and dash for the 112, and they'll get back out onto the racing line. This is currently with the Ronin PT Red that we were watching, now back up to the Rising Star, the Rising Panda Racings, as they are currently holding off, I believe, from this is the Racing Spatulas, and then the Rising Panda Racing just behind. So a battle for third position in class. Here comes the dive on the inside from the Rising Panda Racing team. What a great move on the inside, and I think a little bit unexpected for the Rusty Spatulas. They were not expecting it there, down coming up into No Name, and what a great move. And the Aston Martins have switched places coming down into the 45-minute mark.
I'm wondering if we might see some extra pit stops here near the end of this race, and it might be good strategy for Rusty Spatulas to come in. We'll find out here in a bit. However, right now, Lucas Romano gifted with the lead in the Pro-Am class, and now you start to see Rising Pandas kind of open up a big gap. But then again, Rusty Spatulas just came out of the pit with Henry Maitonen behind the wheel, so it's only a matter of time before those tires start to come up the temperature and really make hay while the iron is hot. Along through Campus and Stavelot, the two cars make their way through, and now you take a look at this battle for overall position, and that is between Welch Competitions, who sit 5th in class of the Pro-Ams, and Ronin PT Red, who sits 2nd in the AM class, making their way out of speakers through Double Gosh. And it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens with 43 minutes, because I'm trying to do my math here. They're doing 2 minute 16-second laps. You've got to make it another 10 laps at least to fulfill a full fuel stint. So we most likely will. What the running order you see here is not going to be. It's not going to be anything the same, as you see a little bit of an off there by Ronin PT Red. So Maya with a quick 2 wheels off in Stavelot, he's going to lose that overall position. But Tristan, I think that the pit strategy, those who may have pitted just now, like Martin Taylor, who's in the pits now for Gamma-Sim Racing, 6th in the Pro-Am class, they may be in the catbird seat here. That's something that's going to have to be watched here in the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's the question that we obviously brought a little bit early on, is the whole thing of pit stop strategies. I know obviously most of our drivers pitted around the 1.5 hour mark, 2.5 hours roundabout. But I just feel like you said, we're trying to do the calculations, and I'm so glad that Jeremy didn't ask me to do the calculations, because he knows me from another league that we did on an early Thursday morning. And do not dare ask me for math calculations, because I will give you incorrect values. And so glad he took that one and pioneered it himself, because I would have told you a very incorrect value. So hopefully you calculated it correctly in your head there. But maybe we'll have to see some cars jumping in at some time soon. Like you mentioned, in the next 20 minutes, we're going to have to watch out here, as we do see the Team Racing Point up in P1. Not Matthew, apologies, Jeremy. We did call it that they were going to possibly come in, and they have indeed decided to jump into the pit lane, possibly put on some fresh tires and just try and lap around even faster. The second car of the Sahara X Motorsports, 2 minutes and 1 second behind P1. So incredible feats for them to stay ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible feat to stay ahead. There we go, Team Racing Point. One of those teams that I was wondering if they were going to be able to pit. go without a pit, they have to come in and top off their fuel. So they will be to the good here with 41 minutes left to go. No driver change as Guillaume Koulibaly will be in it to win it here, as Eric Von Spiker right now sitting in second place. So Team Racing Point sending their team out for the final time today. And this battle for overall position just cannot get any better, as the 91 goes to the inside of the 747 and going to take that overall 13th position. But Horvitz not going to let him have it that easy, but he does, coming off the bus stop, move right to the top of 13th, and Horvitz back down to 14th.
Yeah, unfortunate one there for Horvitz in 14th position overall. Project 91 of Michael Frey, who we know is at pace since the start of this race, starting well up on the top blocks and then obviously falling down due to some incidents. Currently sits 13th position. Is back on board there with the Rusty Spatulas. Obviously, just recently lost the position with the Rising Panda Racing team, with Christian Kampfreger holding the lead in the Rising Stars, and the Henry Mittinen just behind him in the 112 Aston Martin. And so the two of them will be racing each other down to the line, trying to prove which Aston is the best around Spa-Francorchamps for the Pro-Am division. Obviously, the Vortex team, kind of Lucas Romano, they currently lead in the Pro-Am chase right now, but I also have a feeling that Vortex car might have to pit, not 100% sure, and we'll have to wait and see how that's going to turn out for them. Unfortunately, for the Welch Competitions car, who we thought had a good chance of chasing up to the top, is all the way down in fifth position in class, but unfortunately 17th position overall for the Pro-Ams, with Luigi Caputi just trying to bring the race to a close. We're officially under the 40-minute marker, 39 minutes left to go in this race. It is so close, and you can taste the sweet success for some of these teams as they are closing in on finishing off the 24-hour race around Spa. It's been a very hectic race so far, and a couple of teams have really been tested here with some newer bronze drivers who have joined us on the grid for some of them even their first 24-hour races, mixed and matched with a couple of veterans who have done multiple 24 hours in the past. So incredible stuff to see the diversity on the grid of the different skill levels that have taken to the board. But here comes the potential attack yet again on the inside line. Aston Martin versus Aston Martin. The door does get closed shut though for the Rusty Spatulas of Henry Mittinen, and he does have to just sit and stand by behind the Rising Panda Racing car of that Aston Martin. But now he's going to have the better run through. Poor exit out of the final corner bus stop, and into La Source they go. The Rusty Spatulas will move back up into provisional third position in class for the Pro-Ams, and 11th position overall. Great stuff for Henry Mittinen, that he makes the move just on the outside of Christian Kampfreger.
And no surprise that it took a couple laps for those tires to come up to temperature for Rusty Spatulas as they work their way up into third in the Pro-Am class. Now setting their sights on Luca Picardi, and like we said, these drivers are all going to have to come into pit for one final splash and dash. You see Paul Body Motorsports in and out 28.5 seconds. Nicholas Sole, the driver of record behind the wheel right now, 28th overall in position, as now you see the number 13 coming out of the pits. But we're watching this battle for third place in the Pro-Am class with Rusty Spatulas, Henry Mittinen back there, as you're seeing Christian Kampfreger in the 46, looking like he wants to kind of try and attack, but then again, he's got 15 lap older tires than Mittinen, so it's just better, discretion's a better part of valor, as the second place driver overall and in the pro class of Eric Von Spiker is into the pits for his final pit stop. So we'll see that just for speed. The 127 is into the pits as well. That is actually going to be a black flag for the 127. I think that's going to be an iRacing black flag as well. So not sure if they're going to be able to, they're going to have to serve that or what happened. I'm wondering, Howie, if it's due to the pits, because you take a look, it's an 11-second delta, 3.4-second pit stop. So here we go. We're going to replay this real quick. And here's the 127. You see him on the dust. I wonder if Tristan, there's some sort of glitch for the 127, and that's part and parcel.
This is This is not good. There it is. There, it's we've seen the Just for Speed car of Louis Fichtner. He came back as well in my stint randomly earlier this morning, about 195 laps down, and now he's decided he wants to come out again 360 laps down and just spend some time coming across the checkered flag line. He has gotten a black flag penalty though for some kind of infringement, probably exceeding those incident limits. So he is well down, and unfortunately, with only 36 minutes left to go, he won't even catch any of the other drivers who are currently in DNF state, as they are just too far away in terms of laps that he would have to count back to try and catch up. And he could get all the way up to 38th position here, obviously, if he had the time to undo all those laps that he's been sitting dormant in the pit lane. So unfortunate there for the Just for Speed team of Louis Fichtner, and he will I guess he's kind of just having fun at this point. There's not really anything for him to chase onto for these final moments, and so just having fun on the backside. This is Team Racing Point up at the top, and yet again still leading by 1 minute and 35 seconds over the Impact SimSport SBR car of Huna Horchi. And we did see the Sahara car having to come into the pit lane, so I'm wondering if the Impact car is going to have to do the same. The Rising Panda racing car that Aston Martin we saw battling it out with the Rusty Spatulas has come into the pit lane as well. So a couple of cars coming in now to get those final stops done and dusted roughly around the half an hour mark. So basically half of a stint left to go now for those drivers who have pitted. Just 35 minutes to go before we reach the end of this race and can finally call it for the Spa 24 hour. But for the time being, our race winner is pretty much locked and loaded. Even with any kind of error granted yet to the Team Racing Point, they've got ample time to recover from it, with Huna Horchi being so far behind, over 1 minute and 35 seconds. And if he needs to pit, it's going to go even further to the DCS Racing Blue team, over 1 minute and 50 seconds behind. So they really have just played their cards right here today, Jeremy, just to keep that car well out in front, and nobody able to contest, as we see the Delta Racing car there of Douglas Souza jumping into the pit box.
Souza coming in, and by the way, the one team that I'm watching closely is the Sahara GT Motorsports Porsche of Eric Van Spiker. 397 sitting in 6th place, fresh off a pit road, and the drivers ahead of him either pitted or need to pit. So it's going to be smooth sailing for 397 if these drivers ahead do not make any sort of leeway, to say the least. And now Van Spiker closing in on Coxino, as that battle for 5th place is going to be heating up, and that's all going to depend on when the Ronin PT number 48 has to come into the pits, as they're both, the 48 and the 397, look like they may be closing in on Souza. There's that battle right there, and they'll talk about a heck of a race. So already they're up 7 spots, and that is before now 8 spots, and that's before the drivers ahead of them have needed to pit, because looking at the pit timers, Horchi, Petri, and Coxino have to pit at some point, or else they're not going to make it to the end.
Yeah, definitely not. So we'll have to wait and see how this is going to go for those drivers who need to pit. Obviously, Ronin PT in 4th are going to have to jump into the pit box, like Jeremy's just mentioned. And obviously, Sahara's already come into the pit box at just about 15 minutes ago, more than like 10 minutes ago. So let's have a look to see what this car is going to do behind Ronin PT, and potentially gain a couple of over positions here. Like we mentioned, we're going to have to watch what happens with Impact SimSport and DCS Racing Blue with regards to whether or not they're going to have to come in and pit. That will obviously determine what happens with the Sahara cars. They came into pit just a couple of moments ago. Those drivers up in front, no pit stops coming from them. Our Team Racing Point car up in top, the number 19, did come into pit as well. So it's just those 3 lying in the middle, the Ronin, the DCS, and the Impact SimSport. Like Jeremy mentioned, we'll have to just keep an eye out when they will come in and pit for the time being. But just about half an hour left of this race, and things are really starting to come to a close now, for half a stint left to go. 23 and a half hours have passed here in the Arden Forest, and lots of laps completed by the GT3s. A heap load of fuel has been burnt, a load of rubber has been disbanded to the left and right sides of the track. But that's the beauty of endurance racing, is the longevity of it, and the sweet success at the end for all of our teams who managed to survive and conquer the 24 hours here that we've been presented with at Spa for the GT Endurance Cup in Europe for this round, a part of the Cup, which is incredible stuff to see. So 30 minutes left. That will obviously be the cutoff for this entire race, but also the 6-hour cutoff for those points. And wherever the drivers lie will be receiving their 4th load of points for this race, split into 6 times by 4 points that they get awarded over the 24 hours. But for the rest of it, it's all pretty much all quiet. As it stands, Michael Frey down 12th currently. He's also just holding on, but all eyes currently on Sahara GT Motorsports with regards to the cars ahead of him, whether or not they will pit.
See who else decides they're going to come into the pits. Nobody answered the call just yet, but Ronan PT losing a little bit of time there to DCS Racing Blue for that 3rd spot. And that's going to be the crux in the fly in the ointment, I should say, as Ronan PT is going to have to come in sooner than the 2 cars ahead of him. But either way, those 3 cars in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all are going to have to come in. And I think that's going to elevate Sahara GT Motorsports to the podium at some point. And Ronan PT Red with Diogo Maya now coming into the pits from the lead of the AM class. Let's see how that works out, because Flight Level Racing did come in about a lap or so ago, and I think that that's going to give them back the lead. There is your class leader in the AM class as they come in for their final pit stop. And we'll take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, because that's where we will see Flight Level Racing come around into the lead. And there they go. So Flight Level Racing is now your leader of the AM class once again, as Ronan PT, all they could do is just sit and watch. 22.7 seconds is the time. I should say 20.1, 22.1 is that they're going for a full service pit stop. I'm honestly surprised they're not going for a gas and go. Let's see where 3rd place is, though, in the AM class. And they've got a bit of time back to the Simcast Racing team, but I'm very puzzled on why Ronan decided to do a full pit stop. I'm wondering if they just forgot to check a couple of boxes and decided, you know what, we'll see what happens. The driver change. Donato Ramos is your driver of record now in the 64.
Yeah, and the 64 car currently going around for the last couple of moments. 28 minutes left on the board for Donato Ramos, and down in 19th. He will be fighting for 2nd, but unfortunately 40.4 off of the Flight Level Racing of Matthew Orvets, who comes into the pit lane now as well. Apologies, no, I saw his name grey out, but now it's ungrayed out, so I'm not sure if he's actually come into the pit lane or not. For the 1st place position in the AM categories, it doesn't look like it is, as Ronan PT Red is not catching up with Donato Ramos behind the wheel. So for the time being, it is the Sahara car behind the Ronan PT McLaren, and right now the whole question is of when those 3 in between are all going to come in. The Ronan PT, the DCS Racing Blue, and then obviously the Impact SimSport in 2nd, the number 6 car, when they will all decide to come in and obviously get some fuel, because I don't think they've got enough to run it to the end of this race from what we've calculated. And so that's going to be the biggest question of whether or not the Sahara car is going to be able to jump back up. The Delta Racing GT car down at 21st with Marcus Adami does come into the pit lane now as well. So a couple more drivers coming in to the pit lane and now coming out of the pit lane. So a very quick splash and dash for the Delta Racing GT car, just getting a little bit more fuel into it and to make sure that they make it to the end of this race without running out towards the end. So let's have a look as we wait for the next 27 minutes. It's all a bit of a wait game right now, and currently all just biting our thumbs and holding on to see what's going to happen at the end of the 27 minutes that we've been presented with. But such a long time has passed, such a little time left for our drivers to stay focused and committed to bring it home here for the Spa 24-hour. It's been long and enduring for our teams here, but it has been also inaugural, and great points will be shared across the board for all of the top drivers who have really committed their time and pace to today's events. Well, I can't even say to today's events, I mean to this weekend's events, and obviously all of our commentators and broadcasters, which will have also a special mention to at the end of this broadcast, to go through everybody who obviously made this possible to have been live across all 5 parts of today's live stream. Just with 26 minutes left to go. The Just for Speed car is into the pit lane. That is obviously a Lichtner all the way down currently racing down quite far. No, actually not. Yes, it is indeed the 43 car of Louis Fichtner, down 43rd. and currently just sitting in the pit lane. Hopefully he does come back out and he didn't just come for a few laps of joyride and then decide to kill the car. Bravo Snoke comes in as well, currently 10th in class. That he's jumping in now, and Thiago Melo is going to lose out possibly to the Gamma Sim Racing of Sebastian Trujillo, as now we go on board. Project 91 Racing is indeed on the backside of the Delta Racing GT of Marcos Adami. This is for position that they'll be racing for, and all eyes to them to see who is going to be taking it in these final closing moments of the race.
So plenty of racing room left for a lot of these drivers. You see this is the battle for 13th, as was mentioned, between Hernando and Adami. And Bravo Snow with Thiago Melo into the pits as well for his final pit stop. So he'll fall off just a little bit. He may fall into the clutches of Christopher Daniel as... let's see here. Yeah, watching just so much is Eric Von Spiker closing in as well on Coxino, but we're still watching this battle here between Project 91, Hernando, and Adami in the number 31 Delta Racing GT BMW. Down the Keppel Straight they go once again with 25 minutes left to go in this race. Both these drivers, they're to the good on the field, but like we saw earlier, with Rusty Spatulas, who, by the way, have raced their way into the bottom step of the Pro-Am podium. Adami has very fresh tires. They're now just coming up to temperature, and he's closing in ever so slightly on the 191. It's only going to be a matter of time before he decides to close in and make that move, because it's 9 laps fresher tires than what Hernando has on his Porsche. Now, as they work their way through Speaker's Corner, they'll close in once again. Of course, you got a hot head of cars right behind you as well, with Simcast actually into the pits in the third position, and they just came into the pits. We'll see if they have anything left here, if they can hold off and possibly sneak by a podium in the final stages of this race. But you see Flight Level Racing also closing in for overall position. That's quite interesting to see Flight Level Racing up 7 spots throughout this race, and they have a pretty commanding lead of about 44 seconds.
Yeah, 44-second lead there from those cars, and pretty good for Flight Level Racing with Ronan PT Red. Like we did mention a couple of laps earlier, is still trying to go for it. The Simcast Racing team is into the pit lane. That's currently 3rd overall, and trying to race it out for the AM class. That's down in 25th overall. Apologies, 3rd in class. That's Ross Norsworthy, who's currently into the pit lane. This is back up with the Sahara, and currently putting pressure on Ronan PT of Carlos Coxinho, and he's really been putting the pressure on to try and get past. And we are still waiting to see when these cars are going to be jumping in or out of the pit lane, because obviously this is going to affect where the Sahara car sits. There we see the Impact SimSport SPR Huna Horchi does jump into the pit lane now, just as we were talking about it. And I'm wondering if the DCS Racing Blue of Jonathan Petrie is going to be jumping in to follow the same succession, and whether or not Ronan PT is going to be doing the same. So we'll stay on board with this fight for the moment to watch if Ronan PT is going to be staying out for the time being, or if he's going to be jumping in at the end of this lap, as he comes now through the last couple of chicane corners, coming up to Stavelo and then up to Blanchimont, and then the bus stop, where we'll see it. DCS Racing Blue does stay out and moves up into 2nd position for the time being. Obviously, we are still pending a pit stop that could possibly come from that car with 22 minutes left to go. And then currently on board, like we mentioned, with Sahara X GT Motorsports, Eric Van Spiker, hoping that Carlos Coxinho is eventually going to pull into the pit lane. Otherwise, he's going to have to fight him out on track. Good raw style like we normally have, with some good fighting. Not going to be able to get the overtake done in the pit lane, as we do see Coxinho going very wide, coming out of Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane. They will go. A couple of the drivers in the background, Gamma Sim Racing pit, and a couple of others, and there goes Coxinho for the Ronan PT car into the pit lane, and the Sahara will make up a couple of jumps, but the Impact SimSport car is already back out on the circuit and has jumped the Sahara with the pit stop. So things have changed up in the top 3, and that's a great move for the Impact SimSport to remain in 3rd position.
You take a look at their pit stop, 13.3 seconds. Absolutely fantastic, as now It's 30 seconds, so maybe. So here's the thing: you still have DCS Racing Blue, who, by the way, have a minute 53. So what you see in your top three overall, that could be your podium right there. There's still to Racing GT, 9/10 of a second behind Raul Hernando, and now we're starting to see the car come to life, coming around Blanchimont as they work their way all around into the bus stop chicane. And I think that with pit stops now, we're starting to see. Now we're starting to see the race just come into play here as Raul Hernando finally able to open up, get that extra gear, and get going here as they work their way around La Source once again. So Hernando found that extra gear, found that extra twist, is able to open up a little bit bigger gap. Ronan PT coming out, a 16-second pit stop. So yeah, now we're starting to see the part of the pit stops where it's just going to be a quick gas and go, get in there, get some fuel, and get you on your way.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll have to wait and see how this is going to go for these drivers. Obviously, you mentioned there that the Ronin PT team, unfortunately, having to get that pit stop serve, they moved down to 7th position. Currently on board with the Pack Simsport GT team, Christopher Daniel. He's down 15th. Bravo Snow does get ahead of the Gamma Sim Racing number 238. That drops down 2 places with Sebastian Trujillo as they've just come out of the pit lane now with just about 20 minutes left to go now. This is an incredibly quick race and not much left on the board for all of our drivers. In terms of the top split, it's all pretty distant for the time being. There's too big of a gaps to be chasing in the last 20 minutes. Well, the closest currently being the Ansys Fisher Motorsports car on the backside of the Sahara. That's 11.5 seconds, but I just don't think it's going to be catchable in these final moments with 20 minutes left to go. And the rest of the grid all just following in the same wake. There's the Pack Simsport GT team, like I mentioned, down currently overall 15th, but in class 10th. The number 55 is needing to try and get up there towards Gamma Sim Racing of Ryan Cromwell, but it is a 32-second gap that the Corvette will have to close down on, which is just a little bit too much at this point in time. So for the time being, a little bit of gaps. We do see the Aston Martin just up ahead of him, putting a lot of pressure, and that is indeed the Rising Panda Racing of Christian Kampfreger, putting a bit of pressure on, I believe, the Kronos Motorsports car, but not in any active battle. This is a Team Racing Point back up towards the top, the team that has been pretty much unbeatable throughout the entire last quarter of this session. From the 6-hour mark, I think Team Racing Point has been up in the top, and they've just been extending their lead lap by lap, with the fastest time being the only car on grid in the 215s, every driver behind in the 216s. So they really have put their best foot forward here in today's events around Spa and made sure that they put the Lamborghini right in its correct place from the start. They've started in P1 and they aim to end it where they started, right on the top jacks of the grid. So incredible work coming from them. DCS Racing Blue obviously starting in 12th position. They currently still 2nd position, so also incredible job from them, but waiting to see still if they're going to be jumping into the pit lane. They do have a 30-second gap to Impact Simsport as well as Sahara, and so if they do come in, it's all the question of whether they will be in front of those two drivers or whether they will fall behind. Back to Velch's competitions, chasing down 1.4 seconds, and this is actually a battle that has transpired because this is the battle for 3rd in the Pro-Ams, which is quite a significant battle that we'll be watching into the last 18 minutes. It's Velch competitions on the back of DSP. These two cars have been at it for pretty much the entire race, from the start to the finish, and now again in the final 17 minutes they will be going at it to take the podium spots for the Pro-Am.
Tell you what, this time has flown by here as we are quickly getting to the end of this race, and we're still waiting to see if Petrie's going to come in for a quick splash in dash. It's been a minute delta time from end to end with a pit stop for a lot of these drivers, so we'll see if it's going to be under a minute with the amount of fuel that the 33 needs to take. There's your 4th place driver, Velch Competitions. We saw a little bit earlier on how they were battling for position all throughout the field. Now they're closing in on the DSP Esport Racing team with Luca Picardi sitting there in 3rd place. If the 189 can catch up, this is going to be quite interesting of a battle for position, as it will be for the bottom step of the podium. You see the two cars making their way into the bus stop chicane once again for another lap. Of course, there is a car up ahead. I'm not sure if that's a lap car, if that's Gamma Sim Racing. Actually, that is going to be the Trout BMW. as they have to get around that car really quickly, or else things are going to get just a little bit fishy for Picardi as he's trying to keep the 189 behind him for the bottom step of the Pro-Am podium. That's Jonathan Petry. He's about set to see if he's going to come into the pits this time by, or if he's going to stay out for yet another lap and try and make it stretch as long as he can. The longest we've seen anybody go out there on stints is 27 laps. There is Caputi, your fourth place driver, and just like that, another lap is going by where Petry does not come into the pits. So he's banking on trying to get as much gap as he can between he and Impact Sim Sport and even Sahara GT as he tries to stay on the podium for the overall position here in the second round of the GT Endurance Cup Europe.
Yeah, but I mean, 29 seconds of a distance currently from the DCS Racing Blue. And I mean, the question is the fuel situation on that car dire to the point where they need to come in? Or that can they possibly try and save each lap with a good old lift and coast and maybe even clicking the engine map down to a fuel-saving engine map? Obviously, he's got a huge cushion behind of 30 seconds to the Impact Sim Sport. So they could possibly try hold on for the last 15 minutes here just by running a more conservative approach and still finishing in second position. So that might be the strategy play coming from DCS Racing Blue. Or they could actually just be perfectly fine in terms of fuel and not needing to stress at all about conserving it. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out at the end. If they finish off with around 30 seconds of a distance, then we know that they really just planned everything correctly and they were able to finish the race with a full push. But obviously, if we see that distance drop significantly by the end of the race, we'll know that there was a much more needed conservative approach coming from the DCS Racing Blue team. There's then the Welsh Competitions car back on board. Like we mentioned, this is going to be one of the more important battles out on circuit coming into the last 15 minutes of racing, as it is going to be the battle for the final podium spot on the Pro-Am class, as Welsh Competitions on the backside, Luigi Caputi on the backside right now of Luca Picardi in the DSP Sports Racing team in the Ferrari. You can see him just in the front left there, now passing one of the back markers into La Source. And so these two are going to be getting close. It is under a second already, as that's the Alpha Trout car again getting in between. He'll have to unfortunately step aside eventually once the Huracan GT3 wants to make his way past. And the Huracan clearly being a good pick from today's events. We can see it from the top ranking spots of the team Racing Point up at the top with the Huracan GT3, and now with Welsh Competitions also in the Huracan GT3 chasing down on a good podium in this final closing stage of the race with just about 13 minutes left to go, almost into those final 10 minutes. And that's where you see some of the dangerous dive bombs happening with drivers. They take those final 10 minutes into key consideration to make those final moves, even if they risk possible damage on the car from a bit of shoulders out battling. There's only such a little bit of time left to race the car out on circuit, and so we might see that being attempted out on track for the remainder of this. So Welsh Competitions, all eyes on them for the last 13 minutes, as well as a couple of the other drivers who plan on never mind, talking about putting DCS Racing Blues in.
Now the game is afoot. Is the DCS Racing Blue team able to get Petry out ahead of Horchie and Van Spiker, or does Horchie at least get up to the second spot, which would be absolutely huge for a disastrous race that the Impact Sim Sport team has had near the end here. And indeed, we see Horchie get up into that second spot. Now the question is, how long is this pit stop for Petry? Watching the pit timer on the right-hand side of your screen, 11.8 seconds. That's going to give him a healthy lead over Van Spiker for the third spot as he works his way off the pit road. And now it's a matter of time. Does Van Spiker have enough to catch up to the DCS Racing Blue of Jonathan Perry? He's not going to, although he will be within 15 seconds, still striking distance should something go wrong with the DCS Racing Blue. And there is your provisional podium for the time being with 12 minutes left to go in this race. A fantastic pit stop by DCS Racing Blues. They only needed 11.7 seconds of fuel. They got it, and they're going to be good to go till the end. Now we have this battle for the bottom step of the podium of the Pro-Am class with Luca Picardi trying to hold off Luigi Caputi for that third spot at 63, over 189, coming off a little source once again. And I'll tell you what, these two drivers have been doing nothing but going neck and neck these past couple of laps, and now Bacardi's really going to have to throw the defense on in spite of having 9-lap better tires than Caputi does.
Yeah, utter disappointment coming in for Sahara X GT Motorsports, and just not enough to get up into at least third place on the podium blocks, as a good timed pit stop strategy coming in from the DCS Racing Blue team. But like Jeremy says, that is pretty much settled unless something goes wrong in the top spots for the top three. But based on the consistency we've been seeing for the past 24 hours, those three should pretty much be locked in for the remainder of this race. So all eyes are onto the battle for the final step on the podium for the Pro-Am division. It is Velge Competitions' Luigi Caputi, following on the DSP Esport Racing team's Luca Picardi, who is trying to defend this position with his absolute strength and best ability that he can. You best know that Luca Picardi's got the entire team in his ear, trying to cheer him on and just giving him all of the spotting advice. As I do see. Good. That's not permanent. Sometimes when you see the blipping in and out of the cars, it's a bit of a scare whether or not they're going to come back or not. But Velge Competition's a bit of a blip, but nothing to fear at this time of the race. So great stuff there from Velge Competitions. But you best know that Luca Picardi has got the entire team busy playing spotter role, watching what the Velge Competitions car is doing and ensuring that he's got the best possible opportunities yet to try and defend himself. 10 minutes left to go. Is the Velge Competitions car going to take the aggression level to the correct standard and make the overtake? Or is DSP Esports Racing going to show the offense, get the elbows out, and keep this final podium spot for the Ferrari 296? It is going to be mid-engine battling out here. The Ferrari 296 twin-turbo engine versus the V10 of the Lamborghini. Slightly shorter wheelbase as well, coming from the car behind. A little bit of different handling coming from the two cars. And this is going to be all or nothing between these two. The two drivers have been shining throughout the entirety of this race in terms of consistency. But it's all or nothing now as to who's going to take the final podium spot here for the Pro-Ams.
Still plenty of time, under 10 minutes left to go in this race. Now, if you're within striking distance of any sort of position, you're going to want to make something happen here, as Drive Lounge by PPM Am with a mechanical black flag, they are in the pits. And that's not going to make any difference. They'll still finish 42nd as Just for Speed while they're still out there finishing in position. And now a great defensive line by Picardi as he makes his way. Tries to tell Caputi, if you want to pass me, you're going to have to go high on me, because that is the only way you're going to make something happen. As Gamma Sim Racing has a mechanical black flag, they are into the pits as well. So a rough go of it for the 137. They may fall out of the top 10 in the pro class as we take a look at a replay. And Cromwell, there we go. Well, looks like they have. So they have connection issues out of the 137, so that's race over effectively for Gamma Racing, as now they are 10th, and they will have their teammate leapfrog them to go out of the top 10. What a rough way after 23 hours and 51 minutes to end up with connection issues. You gotta feel bad for them. Now we continue back on this battle for the bottom 7 of the podium in the Pro-Am class. A little bit of dust getting picked up, no harm, no foul, but you're seeing Caputi trying to close in on Picardi, losing a little bit of ground, and I think that dust did not help him whatsoever. And you see the Trout BMW trying his best to see if he might have to go around the cars.
Yeah, that Trout BMW has been a little bit in the way for the time being in terms of being a back marker in this fight. And I swear I keep on seeing him. He's like reappearing in every single battle that we're seeing out on circuit. And now he's again trailing behind the Pro-Am battle. 7 minutes left on the board, though, and this is indeed the final slot of desperation here. I'm just hoping that Velge Competitions of Luigi Caputi will make a sensible overtake here and not do something that could potentially take both of these cars out. Same goes for the defense, though, with Rising Panda Racing. I mean, obviously, you've got all the defense capabilities, but you can't do anything illegal to keep your car up ahead that could potentially take both cars out of the running order with one bad foul swoop of an incident. So let's hope that we have some good racing between these two, between the Velci competitions and the DSP Sports Racing team. As we mentioned, the current only battle to be really watching on track. Sahara GT was catching slightly to DCS Racing Blue, but it's 13 seconds of a gap with 6 minutes left to go. There is physically no way that he can catch without some kind of incident happening with the DCS cars. So that is set in stone, like we already mentioned. The only battle that is under 1 second on the circuit is what we're watching right now. Velch Competitions was in P number 1 for the Pro-Ams during a couple of my previous shifts, and obviously it's just gone slightly downhill. They did have a bit of an incident. I remember during the just after the morning shift, they had a bit of an incident and were able to recover it somewhat, but obviously it lost them a couple of positions. Now they're back on to attack the podium spots here. The DSP car has been consistent pretty much throughout this entire race, and now just trying to hold off with 6 minutes left to go. It is all or nothing, and there's a lot of pressure on both the drivers, I'm assuming, from their teams. One is the pressure is to defend. It's to keep your elbows out and make sure you keep the position that you've been holding for the past how many laps. Whereas for the other driver, the pressure is to try and get back to where we were. We were obviously P1 in the Pro-Ams, and now we're all the way down to 4th. And just at least trying to get onto the podium blocks will be good enough for the Lamborghini of obviously the Velch Competitions car. And so the work needs to be placed in here for the black, yellow, and red car behind the white and orange Ferrari as they head through Blanchimont yet again for the last couple of moments of this race. And time is slowly but surely ticking. 5 minutes and 20 seconds left. We are slowly going to start to get towards those final lap encounters as well. We're looking at about 2 minutes and 20 seconds roughly per lap here. And so this is going to probably be, well, we can't judge it based off of them. We have to judge it based off of our race leader, who, if we look on our track map provided in our software, our race leader, the number 19, is currently heading into Eau Rouge. And no, apologies, that's who we're spectating right now, the 189. And so we'll find the race leader eventually, trying to see where he is out on the circuit, and that will give us judgment. There he is there, coming onto Stavelot and then onto the back straight. With 4 minutes and 40 seconds left, he is going to come across the checkered flag line at approximately 4 minutes and 15 seconds left. And that's going to allow for possibly 1 to 2 more laps of racing after that. So it's all going to come down to this now. It is getting a little bit close for the Pro-Am cars here. They need to put the pressure on and make a move, or unfortunately stay in the correct position as they are if the defense is good enough from the DSP team.
Let's see what happens. And those two are basically, they're running off course left and right. So is it a matter of position, or is it a matter of black flag? That's going to be the question here, as you do see 2:18.76, and we're at 2 laps to go. So 1 lap to go next time by for Team Racing Point. However, you're still watching this battle for the bottom 7 of the podium, 3rd place in the Pro-Am class, with Luca Picardi, the DSP Esport Racing team. Number 63 ahead of the 189 Velch Competitions of Luigi Caputi, going nose to tail. It's Ferrari over Lamborghini, an Italian party, as they work their way through Le Fans and set themselves up for Compass and Stavelot. Tristan, it's interesting how this race has played out, to say the least, and oh boy, yeah. Anyway, it's been interesting to see how this race has played out, and we've seen a lot of great battles, and now the final 3 minutes is going to come down to who's going to finish on the bottom step of the podium in Pro-Am.
Yeah, and that's all we're really going to be talking about here for the last 2.5-ish minutes. And it's also all going to obviously come down to where our race leader is going to be finishing off this race. We saw a potential look on the outside there from the Velch Competitions car, as he is starting to get a little bit desperate there to try and find a way around the Ferrari 296, heading down towards La Source. They will go, and still within attacking distance, 3/10 behind is the Lamborghini, and doing everything that he can in his power to try and stir up and intimidate the Ferrari 296 up in front, which has been an incredible force of opposition and defense, that they've been going through for the past couple of laps. And the Lamborghini just trying every kind of strategy it can to get closer and closer. And unfortunately, the outside line of the bus stop chicane is incredibly difficult to try and make an overtake around, because obviously It's not going to place you on the correct line coming up onto the main straight up to La Source, and that's exactly what happened there for the Vouch Competitions. Again, he's being forced out wide on the outside line by the Ferrari, not the ideal line heading into sector number 2, and so again, he's been placed behind the DSP for the remaining time, but 1 minute and 55 seconds left. And if we look at where our race leader is, he has just gone across the checkered flag line, I believe, unless we are on the checkered flag line for the endurance circuit. But nonetheless, regardless of which checkered flag line it would be, it is over. It is underneath 2 minutes and 10 seconds roughly. And so this is officially white flag territory for our race leader. The Team Racing Point up in front has done an incredible job. 1 lap left to go for his side. And depending on where these two are out in circuit will depend on whether or not they get 1 more lap to go and attack. 1 minute and 10 seconds left on the clock here for the Spa 24 hour. It's an inaugural 1,440 minutes is about to pass by as a total time at 24 hours around circuit. And there we now see the final lap being shown in the top left-hand side. You can see how desperate it's starting to become here for these two, and they will be starting their final lap once they go onto the checkered flag line. So 1 more lap after this straight in order to try and make the position overtake. Who is going to make the move? Is it going to be Vouch, or is it going to be DSP holding it off?
That's going to be the question here. Is you see Caputi trying to do what he can. He saw a couple of looks there last time by, and now he's going to try again. This time, Bacardi going to make him work on the high side, and they're going to go side by side, neck and neck through the bus stop, and that's going to give the advantage. Hold on, nice little slide job there by Bacardi. I thought Caputi might be able to hang tight with them, but indeed, that is not what he is going to do. They are getting the last lap. White flag is out, and we are taking the FIA F1 finish line, so it's not going to be that much of a run. If you want to pass, you really got to dive deep going into the bus stop, as these two have been neck and neck, and the Trout BMW still sitting back there and kind of being a little bit of hassle. You see Caputi falling back just a little bit, but still close enough to make something happen. A good run coming out of Radion and going through Kemmel and down into the Kemmel straight, as we got one eye there, one eye on your leader as they work their way for the final time down the Kemmel straight. Does Bacardi hold off? Yes, he does take the defensive line through Lacombe and setting up for Malmedy. Checkered flag is out, though, as what a dominant race that we have seen from Team Racing Point. They cross the line. Gianni Gualbo wins for the number 19 overall, and in Pro, we go back to the battle for third place in the Pro-Am standings, and you saw Caputi make a look to the outside, not going to make anything happen here, and works his way through Speaker's Corner, gets a tire off, and we're still watching to see if anyone's going to hit their incident limit here. With as tight as these two have been racing, that is a very serious question as they're going through Double Gosh around there. Impact Sim Sport comes across the line. They finished second after a very rough race for them, but still through LaFon, no harm, no foul for that battle for third place. In the position, Lucas Armato, your winner in Pro-Am. We're waiting to see, though, who will be on the bottom step of that podium. Flight Level Racing with Matthew Orovitz, your winner there. And this battle might be over unless somebody has a light brake pedal going into the bus stop. I think it might be too little too late. Bacardi able to get away from Caputi's wheels that kind of dipped off into the gravel coming off of Malmedy, but still Caputi closing in ever so slightly. It's going to be one last attack, and it's going to try everything but the kitchen sink. Not going to happen as Bacardi comes around the final corner. He'll jump on the gas, and he will take third place in Pro-Am, a hard-fought third. Luigi Caputi finishes off in fourth place, and Lucas Romano, there you go, your winner in the Pro-Am class, and Flight Level 747, your winner in the Am class. So near the end, Tristan, we had a whole lot of mass calamity and mayhem, and thankfully it wasn't too damaging.
Yeah, absolutely not. It looks like even though we were in that final moment of desperation, there was no silly mistakes or silly dive bombs made by any of our drivers. And so that's incredible to see the level of professionalism in terms of sportsmanship that we get to see at the GT Endurance Cup. But such a close battle between the likes of the Valch Esports and the DSR car, just not enough for Valch Esports to make it past. And hard fought battle, but great defense as well coming from the rest. But back up to the front in terms of Team Racing Point, I mean, absolutely stellar job to finish the race over the line. There we see a nice little replay of everyone coming through. There's one of the other Team Racing Points who come across. But Jeremy, away for our race results.
It really has been. And by the way, thanks for joining us. Go take a break. 14 hours on this broadcast. Any final thoughts as we take a look at our pro race results?
Yeah, I mean, just incredible racing for the 24-hour, and I mean the rest of the Cups events are, I think, just going to follow in the same wake. But incredible duration over it for this 24 hours. Loads of ups and downs, loads of issues that arose for some teams, and lots of opportunities for others. It's been an incredible time for myself here on this broadcast, as Jeremy mentioned, 14 total hours with you on time for this 24-hour. It's been great to be with you. My name has been Tristan Herbst, and I'll hopefully see some of you around for another massive endurance event such as this. It's been a pleasure as well working alongside all of you, all of the amazing people that we got to work with over here. Jeremy, thanks once again for working alongside you for the final closing of the Spa 24, and I'll see all of you lovely humans another time around.
That's Tristan Herbst, and we'll see him down the line. You saw the Pro-Am and the Am results. So the cars will come down onto the circuit, but all in all, what a fantastic race that we had today with 24 hours ago. We started this race, and of course you see some drivers deciding to give us a little bit of donuts, which after 24 hours of competition is absolutely fantastic. But either way, your podiums look like this: Team Racing Point, Impact SimSport SBR. You see Team Racing Point out there doing donuts, and Jonathan Petrie in the DCS Racing Blue. They are your podium finishers in the pro class. Let's go right to the Pro-Am class with Vortex, your winner there. Rusty Spatulas in second, DSP Esport Racing Team. Thought it was going to go down to the wire. It almost did. They finish it off in third place. And joining us in the booth shortly will be our winners. But first, Simcast Racing Team, Am, third place. Second goes to Ronin PT Red. And we are going to drag in at least Matthew Orovitz and Paulo Calvo, as they are your winners in the Am class in the 747 flight level racing. So congratulations, gents. We'll start with Matthew. You held down the fort for 747 for quite some time, and really that was an absolute fantastic finish.
Yeah, I did a double stint, woke up at like 4 a.m., got in the car around 5, had a really good double. My pace was there. Then Paulo ended up getting in the car, and he had really solid pace, and I took it for the last 3.5 hours there, and my pace started to dwindle a bit, and the 64 car behind was actually digging into us a lot. So it just really came down to being consistent, not making mistakes, and it went really well. Me and Paulo have been racing together for 5 years, and we've never won anything together. We've gotten second place, 4 or 5 times, but never pulled through with the win. So this means a lot.
And Paulo, we had you in the booth. I was a little worried that we were going to have the announcer's curse, but you guys did well. Congratulations.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, like we had a great Ford Mustang, and obviously have to thank all of our helpers. Kyle Lowe for driver coaching, Lear Motorsports Performance, JM Detailing, Mask On, everybody who comes on this program. They're who let us do this, and just great work from everybody involved: Matt, John, Mike, everybody who helped us out through this race, and John and Mike got the Ironman stints overnight, and just they were up till 3-4 in the morning. I think Mike maybe got 2 hours of sleep, something like that. So those guys just absolutely crushed it, and just a huge shout out to them.
Either way, you guys got out front, and then it was basically game over for the rest of the race. And I guess the last question to Matthew was, you had to get out there and really hammer those final stints. You talked about Ronan PT Red closing in on you. What was it like to know that you had cars chasing you down, but at the same time, you still had to hit your marks?
Yeah, my stress levels for those last like 2.5 hours before the last splash pit stop, I was like shaking in my boots the whole time. I've had some close situations in like VSEA races or other league races, and it's the last 40 minutes or so. So it was pretty different. You had to be able to manage that stress for that longer period of time and just not messing up. There was a few times where the car got squirrely into some of the high speed corners like the kink or, Puan, and just being able to catch those, gather yourself up and not make those mistakes on the next laps. It was pretty stressful, but we knew we were there at the front. We knew what we had to do, and I think everybody did a good job.
All right, gents, congratulations on your win, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
That's Matthew Orvitz and Paulo Calvo, your AM race winners. Going to dig in and go to the Pro-Am class. That's Vortex. We'll bring in Lucas Romano, Joran Anglin, Victor Declodet. And guys, I've got to say this. What a fantastic race that you had. It was it went down to pit strategy. So we'll start things off with Lucas Romano. You were the driver in there for the final stint. What did you have to do to make sure that not only you kept your lead, but you didn't mess up that final pit stop?
Yeah, the pit stop was okay, but it was particularly the last few laps on all tires. That was I don't like to do it again, let me say it. Very hard.
We were very proud of him.
I was going to say, Masio, you had a very good stint yourself, getting up front and kind of, not only shoving Rusty Spatulas back into second place, but when he did, you were able to gap the field. What was that like throughout the day?
Yeah, it was very intense. All the GT3s, same performance with the BOP as well. For us with the Aston, it was so hard to overtake. We were barely having a wing because we wanted the top speed, but we didn't have any. So the corners were also tricky, and yeah, just to overtake was so hard. But yeah, we all enjoyed it after the big setback we got at the beginning. We came back very strong. So yeah, that makes it even more beautiful actually.
And Vic, you're sitting there basically, I would imagine you were one of the ones in the overnight period. So what is that like going through those nighttime hours and just logging laps just to make sure that the car stays, close to the front, not necessarily at the front, but you want to get up there and be able to, contend for a win. So you got to make sure to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I had some trouble in the beginning of the race and I had some damage. But then in the night stint, we had luck with the safety car 2 times, so we got back to the lead lap. So yeah, that's pretty nice for us, and that's a good feeling, and that's where we did go further with, and it packed out really well.
And of course, last but not least, Joran, you put in a couple good stints as well near the end of the race. What was it like racing with what I think was probably one of the tightest classes here in this race?
Yeah, it was very fun actually, and very busy on track. A lot of cars, especially in safety car restart or something like that. A lot of cars on the same part of the track, so it was very fun, very busy, a lot of traffic, but managing traffic was good actually.
Well, gents, congratulations. A fantastic run out of Vortex. A big win for you guys as well. The first huge endurance race win here in the GT Endurance Cup Europe. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Of course, it was Lucas Romano, Masio Van Look, Vic Decloet, and Joran Anglin. Last but not least, we go to our overall winners. As talk about a heck of a show that these guys put on, and that is Gianni Cuomo, who is your driver of record for the winner, Luca Picardi and Piercarlo Patti. We'll start off with Gianni. you had a lap lead, but at some point you probably had to think, okay, this last pit stop, I got to make sure that it's just the bare minimum that I need to get out front. So let's try Luca Picardi. Luca, you got a copy?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, the question is, you guys got a lap lead, but that final pit stop, you had to make sure to do the bare minimum so you didn't lose more time than you had to. Giami, how tough was that for you?
Yeah, I think for our team, we were in the Pro-Am. We had a lot of damage, and we had to recover for a podium. And we made a strategy in the last hour to not change our tires while the number 189 car changed its tire. So we had to battle till the end for getting this podium. Guys, I'm still checking up for that.
Well, you basically had the. I say, Luca, you had the stint of a lifetime because you're the reason why you had a lap lead on everybody. Granted, your competitors behind you fell into some sort of problem, but you still logged fast lap after fast lap.
Yeah, because in our team we don't want to lose our minds when we got the damage, and we want to fight till the end, even if it's impossible to have past an hour, 1 hour to the end. We want always to fight, and I think today, our first 24 hours for championship, we wanted to pay ourselves for all the work we made in this week and all the weeks before.
And last but not least, Pierre Carlo, fastest lap of the race by a mile. What is it about this team that makes you guys just so fast in the Lamborghini?
Well, actually, we have to say thank to our coach Riccardo Lamoglie, who I'm the team manager of the team Racing Point, and our coach did a fantastic job with our guys, with Jaime, with Vito, Gabriele, Rosone, Antonello. They managed to have actually a lap further than the other teams, and in this way we could manage of this huge gap that we had. Actually, it has been a tough race, a hot race, I would say, and I'm not speaking only about the temperature. But it's gone well. Our target was to catch the maximum points for this race, because this one is the most important race of this championship, and actually we achieved it.
Well, either way, gents, congratulations. A fantastic run. And now we set our sights set on our next round. Congratulations. You're winners in Team Racing Point.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And with that in mind, that does it for this round of the 24 Hours of Spa. Round number 2 in the championship that is the 2026 edition of the GT Endurance Cup. Of course, we've got a couple more races left to go here in this championship. You can always log on to you find us on our Discord as well as to get more information on the GT Endurance Cup. Our next round that we have is I'm trying to pull up the series championship here. I've lost my mind, so it's all good. That just happens from time to time. Our next championship is just in a couple of weeks in Italy. It'll be a 3-hour race, so definitely stay tuned to the social media channels and Monza. Oh, cannot wait to see that happening. That is the 1st of August. You'll definitely want to pay attention to that. So for the entire crew, got to thank Howie Burrows, Morgan Cook, and Amit Ohm for making it sound oh so good. And of course, in the booth, Tristan Herbst, Matthew Duffin, Ron Mons, Lorenzo Bonzer, James Newton, the deep voice known as Jim Cunningham. My name is Jeremy Scott. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time out, August 1st at Monza. Don't forget to keep it pointed forward, keep it between the ditches, and always keep it greasy side down. See you in a couple weeks from Italy.